The following high-definition sporting event coverage is a presentation of HDNet. Sports like you've never seen before.
The Little 500, it's really big in Indiana. A relay race like no other, with thousands in support wearing their colors. They ride a cinder track for 50 miles. Regular IU students give everything they have to propel their teammates toward triumph. The feelings of happiness and heartbreak will stay with them for years to come. What they seek today will stay with them for a lifetime. From the campus of Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, HDNet Sports presents the 54th annual Little 500, the 2004 edition, coming your way from Bill Armstrong Stadium. Nothing can dampen the enthusiasm of this crowd that could build to the vicinity of 20,000, but certainly the crowd is gonna get wet today because just moments ago it started to rain. Alongside Jason Sonnenborn and Dylan Casey, and with Eddie Van Geist down below at field level, I'm Jack Edwards, glad you could be with us. Jason, 4 times a rider in this event, twice on the All-Star team. You're one of the big names in the history of this sport, but I'm sure you must have felt the butterflies. What's it like to be this close to the green flag?
Oh, it's months, maybe years of preparation. These guys have worked their butts off. They have coaches, they have fans, they have family, mechanics. Everyone's here to support them. They know that this is a day, it's all on the line. They're all racing for that checkered flag. They're racing for years of glory after today.
Dylan, you've done just about everything there is to do in cycling. A former teammate of Lance Armstrong in the U.S. Postal Service team, an Olympian, one of only 3 men ever to win titles in the same year on the track and on the road. Yet this is a unique race, and with this coming down, it could get really dicey.
You're right, Jack. This is a really unique event, and all the coaches and the riders know as they feel these raindrops start to fall on the moments before the race starts, that now all of a sudden they're starting to think about, well, maybe we're only racing until lap 100, because they know that if the weather gets bad enough, they could see the white flag after 100 laps. So there's 2 races going on today.
Yeah, scheduled for 200 laps. It could go official at the end of lap 101. So as Dylan said, they could be racing just 1 lap at a time. And in a race that has enough intensity, that could add something additional to that as well. They will race until this cinder track becomes unrideable. This race gained a lot of fame a quarter century ago. Eddie Van Geist was actually in the cast that helped bring it to that level. He's a member of the Hall of Fame, an exclusive group. Let's go downstairs for his insight. Eddie.
Right you are, Jack. This 54th running of the Little 500 is a very historic one. It is the 25th anniversary of the Academy Award-winning movie Breaking Away, which put Indiana University and Little 500 weekend on the map. Everybody's familiar with the world's greatest college weekend. It's also the 20th anniversary of the Cutters getting involved in the race. They are the winningest independent team. They've won this race 6 times, and the Cutters made their first appearance 20 years ago. They started from the 10th position. Today, 20 years later, they're starting again from position number 10. The Cutters are the strong team, but when you talk to people here, the fastest team has the pole position, Major Taylor. Speed at position number 1, strength from position number 10.
Well, right now, everybody feels as if they've got a shot to win this thing, and if they do, their names are going to be remembered forever. You get a ring for winning the championship at the Little 500. You show that ring around this campus on this weekend, people will step back and look at you with awe. Every rider taking part in this event knows that. Let's get their perspective.
Little 500 is one of IU's biggest traditions. It's been going on for over 50 years now.
The Little 500 is really an interesting event because it's an intramural event, but it's unlike any other intramural event around.
Indiana University has a really strong intramural program, whether that be basketball or football or whatever, but that really pales in comparison to the Little 500.
Honestly, I didn't know much about it coming into school as a freshman, but first time I was here at the race, my freshman year, it just kind of encaptured me, the whole atmosphere, and just seeing like how much work and dedication these riders put into it.
It was started by a guy named Howie Wilcox. He noticed the high population of students riding bikes around campus, and he decided it'd be a good idea to start a bike race for it.
I'm starting to get a bigger grasp rather than it's just, a fun weekend or out there to ride a bike. Like, it's an amazing event. It raises a ton of money for scholarships. They give out like $34,000 scholarships every year, so it's huge, and it's awesome to be really a part of the history, because it really is a defining moment in IU's history.
The culture of Little 500 IU is like so big. I mean, like I said, it's more than a bike race. I mean, we do this all year round, and the people out here aren't really our competitors. They're more of our friends.
There's a lot of camaraderie involved in the Little 500 race day. You can see just all the fans in the stands, 20,000 people, just all the different colors and everything. It's really special.
There aren't hundreds of millions of dollars in television rights fees for this event. If you're a Category 1 or Category 2 rider, an elite rider, you are ineligible to ride. It's truly a student event, yet the names of people who have excelled in this event will live for a long, long time on this campus, Jason.
That's very true, and millions of dollars are raised for working students through scholarships through this race. Great men are responsible for this race. Howdy Wilcox, we can thank him for starting the event. Herman Wells kept it going. Bill Armstrong, somebody to thank. Today it's guys like Kurt Semick, Jonathan Purvis, Rob Ramey. Thanks a lot to the foundation, all run by volunteers, packing this stadium, a $1 million event.
Yes, and once again, students will be the beneficiaries of scholarships from the money raised. Just moments from dropping the green flag, can we see perhaps some riders having adrenaline get the best of them? We'll be back to discuss that when we return to Bloomington, Indiana in just a moment. HDNet Sports returning to Bloomington, Indiana for the men's Little 500. A year ago, this is how it went. Jason Sonnenborn, take us back.
Oh, it was an excellent finish. One of the most exciting finishes we've seen in years. You see John Grant taking the checkered flag over Simeon Commission on Team Major Taylor. Simeon Commission, he's back this year riding for a strong Team Major Taylor team. Look for them to give Cutters a little threat today.
Does experience make the difference this year, or is it going to be some unheralded team that makes some heroic run from back in the pack? Let's listen as the riders in today's men's Little 500 take a look forward to what's about to unfold.
Little 500 is just more than like a bike race.
It's an event in itself.
The Little 500 is technically an intramural sport, but I don't really think the phrase intramural really does it justice.
We put anywhere from 12 to 30 hours in a week, depending on if it's vacation or during school.
Balancing schoolwork and riding is very hectic. I can't fall behind. Make sure I study every day. I can't wait till the last minute to cram like normal college students do.
You just have to be on top of your game. You have to be all over your time management skills. When it comes second semester, the Little 500 is my primary focus, and my team's too, which unfortunately interferes with school sometimes.
It's very difficult to stay motivated, but it's all worth it in the end, definitely.
Winning the Little 5 this year as a senior and being a part of this team for 3 years would probably be the greatest single event in my life.
I don't know if I could even put into words what winning the race would feel like.
It would be the culmination of my life so far. I couldn't think of anything more I would like to do.
We all want to win the race and make the alumni happy as well. And we just want to start a dynasty back up.
It would be the perfect capstone to my college career.
Can't even explain how it felt last year. It was just something, it was just like heaven. I don't know, it was something special. I wouldn't trade it for any other experience in my life.
It'd be so big if we won this year. There's 2 guys on the teams that have been riding for 4 years. And I mean, we've come close a couple times, but we haven't gotten that big victory yet. So, I mean, that'd be probably more fulfilling than probably an IU diploma, I think.
These riders train year-round in preparation for this race on their own road bikes, and I might add, for college students, some pretty nifty bikes some of them have. But Dylan Casey, as a pro rider, you've already explained how this is a unique event on unique bikes. Does it all come down to cadence and knowing your limits?
Well, Jack, these riders only have one gear, and so they've got to pick a gear that allows them to maintain enough speed to go the distance, but also have something left on the last lap so that they can get up to a sprint. So they've been training for months.
Well, they are going to give it their best here and see how long they can last. Perhaps there's something legendary in the making. There is a team known as the Cutters that many of you got to know pretty well through the movie that Eddie Van Guy's already talked about. He has a little bit more insight on the legendary Cutters.
I'm joined with a very well-known coach of the Cutters, Jim Kirkham. And Jim, the Cutters, their 20th anniversary. You've had 6 wins, your last win coming in the year 2000 when you lapped the field. How does this team compare with that one that gained a lap?
Well, they were both a dedicated group of guys willing to become their best in cycling, and I think they're very comparable to that 2000 team.
You're going to go out there and try to do the same thing. We want to lap the field.
Well, everyone wants to lap the field. We're going to ride the best race we can, an aggressive race. We want a fast tempo, and if it so happens we make it around, we make it around. Our goal is to win the race, whatever means necessary. And we're not necessarily shooting to lap the field, but we want to use all of our energy on the track.
Finally, what team worries you the most?
Well, there's a few teams. Fiji's a big concern of ours. They're a really strong team with a great tradition. ATOs have come on really strong this year. Major Taylor, very savvy bike racers. We always have to watch them. And there's the Acacias and Phi Delta, the teams with a lot of history.
Good luck, Jimmy, to you and the Cutters. Jack, I'll tell you, the Cutters, a tough group of guys, and you know this redhead here, he's a tough guy. See you later, Jimmy.
Eddie, thank you very much. Team Major Taylor on the pole wearing the green. They could be a pretty big factor, Jason.
Well, they could, Jack, and in fact, they have the fastest one-lap guy out there. They have Simeon Commission, who is the strongest sprinter in the pack. If it comes down for a sprint, Team Major Taylor is going to be a threat. Cutters, however, they're more of time trialists. They want to string this race out and make it fast from the start because they're 4 deep. Actually, they're 5 deep. They had 5 guys in the top 20 in ITTs. My dark horsers, Fiji, they're competitive as well, and ATO.
Well, if this race is anything close to as good as yesterday's was, we're in for a real treat because yesterday it came down after 25 miles to about the length of one rim of a tire. Dylan, take us back.
You know, it really was an amazing last lap, and I was really impressed with the Kappa rider because she was really well positioned. But we saw the crash that really took a lot of riders out of the race right from the beginning, and that's something that everybody's got to think about. But coming to the final lap, we see the Kappa rider in green, who's got the inside pole line, and then the Teter rider who's coming around on the outside, which is the longer way to go. And we see them coming around the last corner, and they're both sprinting. And the Kappa rider did a great job of holding off the Teter rider in black to take the victory by such a small margin.
You see it once again, it was literally a photo finish. There were celebrations going on in 2 different pits before it was final. And the green-clad Kappa Gamma riders came home with the victory yesterday. You know, it's not beyond the realm of imagination that we could see that kind of a finish in the men's race today.
I think absolutely, Jack. That's the great thing about it. You know, they're going to ride 50 miles. There's 4 teams, 4 guys on each team. Lots can happen. There's going to be wrecks, but you'll be amazed. There'll be a couple guys going for the checkered flag at the end. I think it's going to be a great race.
Dylan, as the raindrops fall that I'm sure you can see here as you watch it in high definition, you know, in pro riding, almost nothing will stop a race. Here they say they will go as long as they possibly can, but how does it affect the strategy?
Well, you know, like I was saying earlier, we know that if the weather gets bad enough, the officials could call the race, or essentially if we reach the 100 lap point, they could show the white flag. So the riders and the coaches right now are maybe reformulating their strategy and saying, all right, guys, let's have 2 races here. Let's think about lap 100, then let's think about the finish line at 200.
Is there something that's the equivalent of a horse racing mutter, somebody who's great in bad weather?
Absolutely. Some riders love it when it starts raining. I'll never forget a time I was in a race and it started raining on the start line, and one of my teammates said, don't worry about it. 50% of the guys just quit. And I guarantee you that there's some guys down there on the field right now shaking their head, and mentally they've quit. So that's going to be a real advantage for the guys that love it when it rains.
Yeah, well, we're going to see some people who are loving it in the muck and in the cinders and in the rain. It could add to some rather shaky surfaces. We've seen some very wiggly moments. Getting ready for the invocation before this event, Father Dan Atkins will be at the microphone.
Good afternoon, Fijis. Would you all like to pray with me? If you would, please just bow your heads for a moment, or whatever it is, and let's go into that place where we talk to God. Loving God, standing together on the threshold of this year's Little 500, we thank you for the bonds of friendship and teamwork that bring us together. Bless our riders, adding a spirit of fair play to their gifts of skill and endurance. Help them to be humble in victory and magnanimous in defeat. May they compete in safety to the finish of the race. Bless all who are here to lend their encouragement, and when this day is done, give us all a safe journey home, happy memories, and peaceful rest. Dios amoroso, que damos gracias por los bienes de la amistad y el compañerismo que han reunidos a estos equipos. Por favor, bendigas a estas ciclistas, dales un espíritu del juego limpio, ayúdales a ser humildes en la victoria y fuertes en la derrota, que compitan con su protección hasta el fin de la carrera. Unidos en nuestro amor a ti, oramos por estas cosas. United in our love for you, we pray these things. Amen. Good luck. Buena suerte.
Watch skyward for parachuters from Skydive Greensburg carrying the checkered flag, the state of Indiana flag, and the American flag. Presenting our colors today, the Turkish Rifles Color Guard. Please join our riders and coaches in celebrating
Public address announcer Chuck Crabb keeping the crowd informed, and it is building pretty quickly as we steal a peek at radar up here in the booth. The rain's coming. First, our national anthem.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free, and the home of the
The a cappella choir, Straight No Chaser.
As the starting riders are with us now at the start-finish line, and we get ready for racing, here again, the a cappella group, Straight No Chaser with Back Home Again in Indiana.
Back home again in Indiana, and it seems sycamores for me. The new mown hay sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the Wabash, then I long for my Indiana home. Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining bright through the sycamores for me. The new mown hay sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the Wabash, then I long for my Indiana home.
Great no chaser, ladies and gentlemen.
Goosebumps raised on necks all over Bloomington and all over the country as you join us live on HDNet. The beginning of the Little 500 just a few moments away. A lot of people are looking at the team wearing green on the pole. Team Major Taylor as a possible victor here in the 2004 Little 500. Eddie Van Geis has more on that story angle from below. Eddie.
Courtney Bishop is the coach of the Speedy team in the pole position. Major Taylor and Courtney, tell us about your team this year. How do you feel about your chances for the 54th Little 500?
Well, we're just looking to be there with everybody else and hopefully get lucky in the end. I mean, part of it's strategy and effort, and there's a luck factor also.
You know, last year you finished second. There's only one position to move up from there, and some people tell me you've got a young man that can really fly. Simeon Commission, tell me about that young man.
Simeon is a junior from Trinidad and Tobago, and you know, it really kind of sets the tone for us. You know, like you said, we're trying to raise the bar from last year, and for us, there's only one place to go.
How do you adjust your strategy? Second last year, what is the strategy coming into this race?
You know, we have a base strategy, but you know, the race is so dynamic that you really have to ebb and flow as the race goes. So, you know, we're just looking to stay with the leaders and hopefully be there in the end.
What can I say? Another sly coach, Jack. He's not showing his cards. Back to you.
Eddie Van Geis, thank you. The warm-up laps have begun. It will be a rolling start. Just like the real Indy 500, the Little 500 is getting set to roll, and we'll bring it to you in its entirety live on HDNet Sports. Scheduled for 200 laps around a 410-meter, slightly banked cinder track. They have a couple of laps to go before they will drop the green. Ed Carpenter, an open-wheeled race car driver, is at the wheel of the pace car. That is the official Indy 500 pace car. Let's take a look at the grid, the first four rows in detail. Jason Sonneborn.
Well, look for Team Major Taylor to really set a fast pace right from the start. Also on that front row is ACR Cycling. Look for them to move up really quickly. ACR is led by David Jordan. He's a phenomenal rider. Riding as our fourth team, Alpha Tau Omega, they're certainly strong. They have two returning veterans, Tom Mearsman and Hans Arneson. That's Tom on the bike. Look for him to try to move up front right away as well. For Phi Gamma Delta, they have all four guys back this year. They're certainly led by Matt Davis, a very, very strong rider. Team number 7, Phi Kappa Psi, storied history with 7 championships. Look for them to maybe be a surprise today. They could be there at the end. Delta Upsilon riding with a couple twins in the pack, and they've come a long way in the last couple years. They might have a big day. Team number 12, that's Kimball, former Delta Chi riders. They're certainly trying to live up to a little bit of the tradition that was built in the 70s by Delta Chi with 8 championships.
Here we go. The pace car is pulled off. They're coming around to take the green.
We're watching the starter
Team Major Taylor in green, Sigma Nu in gray, and ACR Cycling in black, the front row. And we are going green, scheduled for 200 laps. And Simeon Commission is putting the hammer down. A little bit of adrenaline going on here, Dylan.
Oh, absolutely. And these guys are definitely happy that the race has started because they've had all this pressure building up all morning long. And I'm sure that some of these guys watched the women's race yesterday, so they don't want to hang out in the back. And we're already seeing the field starting to single out. And as we come into the third corner, these guys are already picking up the pace.
Oh, that's a very strong rider. Craig Lukens for Dodds House moving up into the front. You know, Craig's a smart guy that's been around for a couple years. He knows there's going to be a wreck between lap 5 and 15. All the good teams want to be on the front, Jack.
Dodds House in front, Sigma Nu in second wearing the gray. And then it is Sigma Chi in third in the gray and white.
Oh, and look at that white jersey, the Cutters. They've moved their way up as well. Here comes the Phi Gams, the team in orange. That's Matt Davis. He wants to get to the front too. His coach, Corey Lewis, he told him he better get up front right away.
Just incredible pace off the drop of the green flag here. The Sigma Nu rider looking around and seeing the Phi Gamma Delta rider, known as Fiji, surge to the front. They're turning about 120 strokes per minute on the cadence still. And how long can riders keep that up?
Well, you know, these guys have been training for a long time to maintain that cadence. So I really think since they're sharing the workload over 4 riders, they've got this race broken down into sections. So these guys riding the first set are really thinking about staying out of trouble, get to the front. We can maintain this speed for a long time. So I think that's what's going through their head right now.
Jason, underneath the wheels, it's a cinder track with a clay base with a little bit of rain falling off and on. How wiggly does the handling of the bike get?
Well, it's interesting you said that, Jack. There's a little groove that forms a couple feet away from the gutter. That's where you're going to see the best riders all day. You're going to see the bottom tier teams. They're going to be floating to the outside where it's a little bit tougher. The cinders are looser. There's a lot more of a chance of a wreck.
Cutters wearing white, ACR Cycling in black, and Sigma Chi in the gray and white. 1, 2, 3 with Fiji dropping into fourth, and Acacia wearing purple in fifth. Everybody's still on the same lap right now, and the pace finally has dropped back to something a little bit more human.
And that was Jason Fowler on the front for Cutters. He won the race last year with Gafambi. Look for really good things out of him today. He's going to try not to do as much work as he possibly can in the first set. He's going to rest a little bit and then try to get a good gap for an exchange. He's sitting in perfect position right now. Jason Fowler for Cutters in white. He's sitting 4 deep. That's right where you want to be. As Dylan knows, you're doing 30% less work back there drafting.
That's right. You know, you want to be near the front, but you don't want to be so far to the front that you got to do extra work. So you want to be in the first 3 to 4 riders. I think that's the best spot right now.
Fiji in orange, Alpha Tau Omega now in blue in the lead position, and ACR Cycling right on the wheel of the ATO rider with Cutters in third.
And in the orange, Phi Gamma Delta. Those are your top 4.
On the exchanges, there are some rather dicey moments, and we've seen one already.
Yeah, this is a rider exchange, Jack. And this actually isn't going to affect the team because you see the guy picking up the bike, he got on it quickly. The guy falling down is going to be picking cinders out of his legs tomorrow.
He's going to have a little badge of honor tonight, huh?
Phi Delta Theta rider with the white with the blue stripes on the outside, making a move around the outside, but Cutters staying on the lead with Dodds House in the blue and yellow second. And we've already had a mishap.
Dylan, just like the pro peloton, if you rub a wheel, you're going to go down. Overlapping wheels causes that to happen. I think that's what happened there.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, and we were really expecting that. We're 5 laps into the race, and we had our first crash.
We're still going green, so these guys are still racing at full force. That's Sigma Nu on the front. They've been a bit of a surprise this year, but they may do well this year.
A Kimball rider goes into the penalty box, spends 2 seconds there. What is the whole protocol behind penalties, Jason?
Well, penalties are tough, Jack. They obviously are a little disadvantage for a team. A team has to go into the penalty box and serve the penalty. Some of them are 2 seconds, some of them are 5 seconds. You might see a penalty today for infractions like creeping. When they're under yellow, a rider's supposed to maintain their distance to the leaders, or a penalty like impeding. And that's when a slower team doesn't move to the outside and let the quicker teams come through on the inside. That's Craig Lukens still on the bike for Dodds. He's doing yeoman's work up front as you see Jason Fowler in white pull through. those are the teams we expected to see up front. Look for a strong, strong performance today from Cutters.
Cutters on the lead with Dodds House in the blue and yellow second, and in the pink, or is it fuchsia, jersey with those magenta pants. You got to be pretty brave to wear those. That's Sincere Cycling now moving up into the second position.
Yeah, cycling fashion is a bit humorous, and as Dylan knows, in the early 90s we went through a bad fad with fluorescent colors. Looks like they're bringing that back here today. Sincere's their former fraternity.
I like their style. They are definitely going old school. And the great thing is about having a color like that, it sure is easy to see your teammates.
Big surge from the ACR cycling rider David Jordan. Looks as if he may be going for an exchange coming up here.
And this is the interesting thing about exchanges, Jack. You're going to see the Acacia rider in purple try to hop onto his wheel. He wants to get a little bit of draft, even though he's struggling to do so. He wants to get all the help he can get going in for an exchange himself. You see teams cue off each other. That's David Jordan in black. ACR Cycling stands for Alachua County Residents. That's where they go to train in the winter down in Gainesville, Florida. You see the bike-to-bike.
Eric Durheimer getting up on the exchange. Acacia also changed, and we're seeing the field get stretched out already. We're just 10 laps into this race scheduled for 200. Team Major Taylor is on the lead. It's still Commission, and now Sigma Nu puts in a surge. Looks as if they're coming up for a change as well. You'll see the riders with tremendous acceleration in that last half lap or so as they try to buy a little bit of time on the exchange. The Sigma Nu rider wearing the gray coming in for the switch here. Briscoe makes a pretty clean change. It's a rider change for Sigma Nu, and they keep the momentum going. He's up and riding. He didn't lose more than about 40 yards on the pack.
And that was a double exchange, Jack. You saw two teams going in for an exchange at the same time. Two teams had to communicate. One's farther out on the track than the other. That's what we call the Jamaica colors. Team 23 there, ZBT, getting a little FaceTime on the front.
Fiji, Phi Gamma Delta, going for its first exchange in orange. Let's see if they get through it cleanly. Steven Spencer is up on the bike, and the pack goes right on by, so Fiji's got a little bit of work to do to get back in there.
Yeah, Fiji's got to chase a little bit. Dodds and Cutters and Acacia and Team Major Taylor on the front. They know that. They'd be wise to pick up the pace a little bit and make Fiji rider do a little bit of work to work his way through the riffraff of the pack. You can see that team in orange, Fiji. He's moving up well. He's been trained well by his coaching staff. He knows he needs to get up front, so he's fighting and clawing and doing everything he can to get there.
ACR Cycling on the lead. ATO and Dodds House also right there. A little bit earlier, the Kimball coach took a shot here. Got to watch out. Look at the outside of your screen here on the left. Hello.
Oh, and that's Steve Haferly with cinders on his back.
It's a full contact sport.
Steve can't take too many pops like that.
Alpha Tau Omega in front, but obviously going for a change here with some huge acceleration. Tom Mearsman comes into the pits and tags, and Hans Arneson is up on the bike, and the pack goes right on by. Dodds House, at least for the moment, is in front with Team Major Taylor. Commission still on the bike in second, but they both look as if they're getting ready for their first exchange.
And Jack and Dylan, look at how strong Simeone was. He rode that wheel out. He knew that he was going to get a little lead out, essentially, from the Dodge rider. Team in green, our pole sitter, Team Major Taylor, looks like they're going to bring it in for an exchange here.
Very slow getting the momentum going for the Dodds House rider now. Commission is signaling. He's got a couple of yards on the pack, but the ATO rider is going right on by. That's Arneson. So Arneson's riding alone out in front of the pack. And Julio Herman gets onto the bike, and he's going.
Arneson is one strong rider. He finished fourth in individual time trials for Alpha Tau Omega. So he is a man that could get off the front. He's doing a lot of work, but it looks to be very fruitful for him. He's getting away from the other riders.
Is it possible, Dylan, to have a solo breakaway in a race like this?
You know, I mean, anything is possible. You know, if a rider is doing a huge exchange and all of a sudden there's a huge crash in the field, well, hey, nothing's going to keep him from keeping going around the whole field. So it could happen, but you know, if you see this exchange here by Team Major Taylor, they did an awesome job because Simeon put his next guy right in the front of the field as they came by, and I mean, that's really how you want to do it.
Well, as fans of cycling so often have seen, that rider off the front, Arneson, is getting reeled right back in. It's just a miserable feeling, and Arneson sees the futility of his solo breakaway effort, and he's not going to put in much more effort than he needs. He's going to let somebody else pull for a while.
And that was Chi Phi that actually brought that back. Dylan, you see Chris Vargo for cutters in white sitting on there. As you know, a counterattack is something that often works in cycling. Maybe Vargo could work a little counter here off the Chi Phi.
Oh yeah, I mean, if one of these riders is going to do an exchange and he just happens to latch onto the back of that, that's a great opportunity to get a distance off the front of the field.
ACR Cycling in black, surging around the outside to go in front. Cutters in white, second. Team Major Taylor wearing green in third, just behind the Cutters in white.
And Vargo's not letting ACR Cycling get any advantage. He's holding right tight on that wheel. The ACR Cycling rider in black is coming out for an exchange, and Vargo didn't let him get any advantage.
No, and you're right. In this type of situation where the riders are accelerating and doing exchanges, actually increasing the pace of the overall field. Because the riders are like, hey, I want to get onto that, and then the overall pace just comes up that much higher.
Ryan Schultz getting on the bike. You know, that coaster break, there's about a 30-foot skid mark on the cinders coming into the pit area. According to the official rules, you have to make the exchange within that 16 feet that are the limits of your pit. You can start running earlier, you can get on the bike later, but you got to make the exchange in the space of your pit.
Oh, we have another crash.
Oh, terrible crash just short of the start-finish line. 3 riders, 4 piled up on a couple of bikes, tangled. And now they try to stretch it out. Apparently nobody badly hurt. And the Sigma Nu rider was actually dazed and walking around wondering where his bike was. Now he finds it, but he's all bent over. And they'll try to come down here and make the exchange. Let's have a look. What happened here, Dylan?
It looks like they're coming around the corner and maybe somebody crossed some wheels there. It looks like the Sigma Nu rider went down first.
And Dylan, what we talked about earlier, there's no bunny hop in the little 500 because you're not clipped into your pedals.
Yeah,
and another rider just comes and hits him, can't get over top.
Yeah, you know, we just saw the Sigma Nu rider. He was overlapping the wheel with the rider in front of him, and once that happens and you make contact, you lose your balance.
And a miraculous move by the lead pack as Evan Scholars had a rider down in turn 1 all by himself, and they all scooted around him. There you look at the Sigma Nu rider who's still getting his breath back after taking a full whack at about 20 miles an hour.
So Jason, we're under yellow right now. What's happening to the Sigma Nu? Are they losing laps right now? Because they're not.
Well, they have a new bike out there, Dylan. At some point in time, either you get a new bike out and you do an exchange, or the same rider keeps on going.
What is the deal with these bikes? Let's compare them to a world-class road bike. Before today's race, Dylan Casey had a chance to make that comparison.
This is a Trek 5900 Superlight racing bike that we use to do all the professional races around the world. It has up to 20 speeds, 2 chain rings in the front and 10 chain rings in the back. We've got a handbrake for the rear wheel and another handbrake for the front wheel. It's made out of carbon fiber, it's super light and very, very highly technical. Over here is the Mongoose Little 500 bike. This is the bike that's used by all the riders today. It's really interesting because it only has 1 chain ring up in the front and 1 chain ring in the back. It has no handbrakes up here for the front or rear wheel. In fact, if you want to slow down on this bike, you've got to stop pedaling and pedal backwards to activate the coaster brake. This bike is one of a kind, highly custom made for this race, and this is one of the things that makes the Little 500 so unique.
That's good stuff, Dylan. Fiji wearing the orange out in front as the race has gone green again. There are 2 bikes per team. We'll talk about fit a little bit later, but there's a bike exchange here. Well, the Sigma Nu crashed, and the bikes go tumbling.
And this is the bunny hop I was talking about, Dylan. He can't go over top.
They got their bikes tangled up.
So these guys, it's all adrenaline at this point. They really need to be doing this faster. Grab your bike and get back to the pit.
And now the second bike comes in, and this is a legal exchange in the situation of a crash like this.
And that's going to be essentially a touch. The new Sigma Nu rider comes in and goes ahead and proceeds at the same spot the other rider wrecks. As you see him still in the race, I think they're a lap down now, but they're going to be competitive. They're not racing for the checkered flag, but they're going to be racing for places 5 through 10, possibly a couple laps down.
All right, right now, Sigma Chi, wearing the gray with the white sides, has the lead. Phi Delta Theta is jumping out in front. ACR in second. ATO is in third. Alpha Tau Omega with cutters wearing the white.
12 minutes and 1 second. Also there, Team Major Taylor, team number 1.
Now ACR in the black with the lead across the start-finish line. Alpha Tau Omega in blue second. Cutters in white in third. And then Team Major Taylor in fourth, wearing the green.
And Jack, Team Major Taylor seems to be riding a smart race so far. You see him sitting in, letting their riders rest. Right now ATO is doing a lot of work, but then again, they do have two of the strongest guys on the track on their team.
And the ATO rider with a burst of energy coming around the corner, but maybe one to go for him. Sigma Chi in second place going for an exchange. Dodds House making a move up into second, trailing the blue-clad ATO rider, or Alpha Tau Omega. Dodds House, good position on the bike from the rider there with the yellow sides on the blue jersey. He's going for an exchange. And gives up about 20 spots in the pack. The Alpha Tau Omega rider looking for an exchange, but ACR goes around the outside. Let's see who gets the better of this between Alpha Tau Omega in blue and ACR in black.
I think what you'll see, Jack, you see two strong teams both coming in for an exchange at the same time. They'll be able to work together, as you see the ACR rider sitting on there, and they'll get back together to just take a minute. It's all, like I said earlier, it's all adrenaline when you get the bike. You want to move up and get to the front of the pack, get away from the riffraff as quickly as you can.
Dylan, strategically, are those teams marking each other? They're maybe letting each other dictate the strategy. Okay, they're going to change, so we're going to change?
Yeah, because, you know, the best time to pit or do an exchange is the same time with some of the other riders are, because you can kind of work together on that. And at this point, we're getting down to who's going to be contesting the final, and so they've recognized that and they're going to work together.
Acacia in purple on the lead in front of Cutters wearing the white, and Team Major Taylor in green, and now move up the outside by Briscoe. Whoa, a little wiggly on the back wheel coming out of turn two, excuse me. The Briscoe rider with the adrenaline pumping as he's getting ready for an exchange, and he nearly exchanged himself with the cinders.
Great gap by this Briscoe rider. What the coach is going to tell you is to keep pedaling in that turn when you're slipping out. Never stop pedaling. He's got a great gap for his teammate. His teammate's going to be very happy to pick up the bike in good position.
Timothy Smith handing off to Matt Kimball, and so Kimball is out there, and that was a very clean exchange, and Kimball actually stays on the lead about 20 yards in front of the lead pack. That's textbook.
Yeah, and Briscoe's not a team that we've talked a lot about today. They could, you know, when teams aren't marking you, when you don't have people in the stands looking out for you, you might see a little attack at times by Briscoe. They've decided not to. They're blending back in there with the pack.
We are on the leaders lap 30 now. They will score 30 at the finish line.
Delta Upsilon in the turquoise coming around for an exchange. You see that last burst of speed into the home stretch. The pits, of course, are stretched out across both the front and back stretches of this track. A little bit shaky getting on the bike, but the Delta Upsilon rider stays out of harm's way. Right now it's Fiji, Phi Gamma Delta in the orange jersey on the lead, Cutters in white second, Team Major Taylor, the pole sitters, wearing the green in third, and up goes the pace as the Fiji rider puts the hammer down. How hard is it to get back into the pack after an exchange when you're starting that single gear bike from zero?
Yeah, you got to be a powerful rider to get that 46-18 up to speed. You're going to see him hop on, and that's actually a great example of how to get it up to speed quickly. You found his feet find the pedals, gets it moving. He's going to get up to 25 miles per hour in no time at all.
For the uninitiated, 46-18 refers to first the chain ring, which is that thing that you turn with the pedals on it. 46 teeth on that. 18 is the sprocket, which is on the rear wheel, which determines your gear ratio. So that's about, what, 2.5 to 1 or so, which is a fairly hefty ratio to have to turn. It allows you a lot of speed, but doesn't give you a lot of acceleration ability at the beginning.
And something Dylan and I talked about, when you hit that wall, there's no downshifting. Like we've talked about earlier, there's only one gear, so when the lactic acid starts to build in the legs, you're not finding another gear, you just hit that wall.
Plenty of conversation going on among the front riders here, Dylan. What are they talking about here?
Well, you know, they're trying to like sort things out. These guys don't want to do all the work, but they want to stay at the front. They've established themselves as the lead group. So, you know, it's like, hey, you guys come up to the front, do a little work, we'll do a little work. They've all got the same objective in mind, and that's getting to the last lap.
It's slowing down a little bit, and as Dylan knows all the time, with slow down, according effect, that's when you might see a wreck in the corners.
That's right. We see the cutters coaches saying, "Hey, let's pick up the speed here. Let's go."
And that's Chris Fargo on the bike for them, a kid that's certainly strong. They won team pursuit. He finished first in individual time trials. By all means, he could be the fastest guy out there today.
According to the very unofficial lap counters in the end zone, Dodds House has a rider that's about 70 yards ahead of this lead pack who is on the lead.
And Dodds House is a team that might not be marked by the big shots like Phi Gamma Delta and Cutters. They seem to have escaped a little bit, and I'm not sure if the pack knows that there's a rider up the road right now.
Well, that must be a communication issue, and it's not like the Tour de France where you rode, Dylan Casey, where you got radio communication. I mean, this is all like old school, huh?
This is old school. I mean, we see the coaches on the side of the track with the big plaques telling their riders what to do. And, you know, I went to one of the team meetings last night, and it turns out that they have their own little secret communications. It's really interesting.
Yeah, some things they might talk about, Dylan, is who's up on the field, where you want to be, how many sets they're going to do in this set, who's coming in next, how many laps in this set, I'm sorry.
So these guys are trailing the Fiji rider. There's the man way out in front in the blue and yellow. He actually has just lapped the man in pink, the Sincere Cycling rider. That's Dodds House. And unofficially, Dodds House is in the lead. They're coming up to an exchange right now. Let's see if it's clean. And the pack is trying to close the gap on this rider.
And that's their strongest rider. Craig Lucan's getting back on the bike for Dodds House. Dodds House, always a strong team. Last won the race in 1998. They're definitely making a move with their strongest guy on the bike, and he's accelerating. The pack, I really can't figure it out, but they just seem to kind of be lollygagging around.
Do you think they just don't know? Because, I mean, let's face it, it's very confusing at times with all the exchanges, all the traffic. It's all you can do just to keep your bike upright. Sometimes somebody might sneak away, and right now he's got about 120 yards on the pack. It's a soccer field. You can tell it's actually exactly 120 yards, just barely longer than the distance of the IU soccer field.
Well, you're right, Jack. What's going on right now is that the Dodds rider has a good gap, and all the coaches and all the riders in the field are kind of like cat and mousing about who's going to take responsibility to chase him down. I mean, we've still got 65 laps to go, so it's pretty early for one rider to get away. But, you know, one of these other riders has the opportunity to maybe try to jump across to the rider off the front, and then we have a two-man breakaway. And it's very possible that with 2 or 3 riders, you can lap this field just like that.
This thing's starting to look like individual pursuit, except it's 1 against 20.
That's right.
It's almost up to half a lap right now, and they have caught on.
This is
Team
exciting.
Major Taylor and Cutters are making a break here, and they're saying, hey, we're not going to get left behind. We've clued into what's going on with Dodds House, and they're trying to track him down.
This is exciting. The top teams in the pack know what's up right now. They're chasing it down with vengeance.
Let's see if these exchanges are clean. Both Cutters and Team Major Taylor going for the exchange. And Dodds House is still out there, a good 100, maybe 110 yards ahead of the lead pack. ACR Cycling has sent a solo rider to try to chase down Lukens of Dodds House. It looks like he's starting to run a little bit thin on the pump.
They're going to come in for an exchange here, Jack. They're going to change riders. Maybe they're trying to get some fresh guys on the front of the pack to try to pull this breakaway back.
Eddie Van Geis is bringing us the color of this event. He's got a very interested spectator.
Well, the inspiration for the movie Breaking Away, the lead character, is actually this gentleman with me, Dave Blaze. In 1962, this Iron Man rode 138 laps, leading Phi Kappa Psi fraternity to victory. And Dave, I got to ask you, you've got your stopwatch there. These guys are flying. What's the best lap you've seen?
I've seen a time of around 31.3 today so far. Fastest lap I've seen, but they've all been pretty much down in the mid to low 30s. So they've been flying along so far.
Dave, what about your relationship? Steve Tessich won an Academy Award. You were the inspiration for the main character. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with Steve Tessich, who won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay.
He was a freshman when I was a senior, and he ended up being my fraternity son. And I guess one could say that maybe the payback for me getting him out of all the pledge duties was maybe having a screenplay written in part about me. So I'm kidding about it, of course, but no, we were very close. I guess Steve really admired my eccentricities at the time as well as my writing ability, so it must have given him some inspiration.
You won so many bicycle races. Where's Little 500 compare with those?
Well, it has to rank at the top. There's no race I've ever been in where there was more associated with the victory here, the excitement of the crowd and just all of the build-up that goes to it. I mean, it's something, it's like Christmas, you know, when you ride this race.
Jack, this man is a legend in Indiana. Dave Blaze, back to you.
Thank you, Eddie. And the Alpha Tau Omega rider, Chris Bench, has reeled in Kevin Moore of Dodds House. So there are two on the lead. That number 28 rider in the yellow and red is from Wright Cycling. He's down a lap. So now,
what's interesting, Jack, is Wright Cycling is the residence hall right next to Dodds House. So these two guys live next to each other. You might see a little bit of collaboration here. If I were those two riders, I'd work together. You see ATO and Dodds House. ATO, the team in blue, they're on the lead lap. They're trying to get all the advantage on the pack that they can.
On the backstretch, we have two riders now.
we're lucky to be joined by Jonathan Vaughters in the booth here, and Jonathan's a legendary name in American cycling. Jonathan, first of all, thank you for joining us and thank you for being a part of this sensational weekend. They are now under yellows. We've had a crash, but explain to me what's going on in the continuing effort to help develop American racing. I understand that a special individual is going to get selected out of the pack here.
I mean, we're developing, you know, the top up and coming young riders around the nation, and I've got them all together on a U23 team. They're competing in the Tour de Georgia right now. At this race, which I feel is a hothouse for, you know, possible future champions, and so I'm trying to pick somebody who I think in the next 2 or 3 years could develop into someone capable of, you know, doing the Tour de Georgia or you know, going on to the Tour de France.
Playing to the strengths of cycling hotbeds such as this would seem to be a great idea in terms of developing the sport in the United States and adding to it.
Yeah, I mean, this is just incredible. I'm a little bit in awe of this event. I mean, these guys obviously have a lot of talent, and I just don't know how many of them have, have thought about maybe pursuing it as a career.
Dylan, you pursued it as a career after being a college student, proving that you don't have to be in this since you're 10 or 11 years old in order to be a pro.
Yeah, I found a passion for cycling when I was in school, and I had a lot of opportunities to do a lot of big races when I graduated, and that eventually led to a professional career. So it's definitely an opportunity that these guys can think about, and the great thing about the efforts of Jonathan Vaughters and his team is they're creating a foundation and a program that's really going to help foster that type of development, and these riders will have the opportunity to go on to be professional, just like Jonathan and I were.
Still under yellow here, and the riders must hold their relative position. It's not like NASCAR where you can bunch up the pack and then it's based on your restart. So Dodds House and Alpha Tau Omega still have an advantage, and they're able to make a cardiovascular recovery during this yellow, perhaps stretching out their shift.
That's a big advantage for the guys out front, more so than the pack, that's for sure, because when you're out front, you're at your red line the entire time, so a lot of guys in the pack are already recovered. That guy out front, was not, but now he's going to have a chance to, to really, or the two guys out in front are going to have a chance to really remotivate, regroup, and go.
So, Jonathan, you're going to select somebody that you see as having tremendous potential. What can that individual, besides living out a dream, what can that individual look forward to in terms of training? What would a sample week be like?
With us, well, I mean, right now the sample week down in the Tour de Georgia is about 650 miles with Lance Armstrong hanging on for dear life. You know, so that's what they've got to look forward to if they want to, you know, choose to join up with our program and continue on with this.
Are you looking for someone who displays not only the physical attributes but mental toughness? Because something a lot of American sports fans don't get is that cycling may be the cruelest sport in the world in the way that competitors go at each other and almost destroy each other psychologically.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you have to be a tenacious competitor. I've never met a bike racer that didn't have a razor-sharp edge about him. And, you know, it's no exception here. I'm sure most of these guys have that edge, but I certainly already like number 10 there. He's a very classy rider, has a lot of attributes that you'd look for in a talented top rider.
And that's from the Cutters team. They have gone green once again. Jonathan Vaughter's a legend in American cycling. Thanks for joining us up here in the booth for HDNet.
Thank you very much for having me.
Alpha Tau Omega on the lead, just a wheel ahead of Dodds House. And the rest of the riders in that pack already have been lapped. So there's a little bit of traffic between these top two teams, Alpha Tau Omega in blue and Dodds House in the yellow and blue, and the teams that want to try to chase them down. We will go to a break and pick up the action, and don't worry about missing anything because we'll keep rolling the tape. This is the Little 500, the legendary race from the IU campus in Bloomington, Indiana. Stay with us on HDNet Sports. One quarter of the way through, we saw a big move by ACR in black, Dylan.
Yeah, you know, those guys made a great move on the inside pole line, really went to the front and turned the screws, and you can see the damage being done behind him.
And then Alpha Tau Omega, which surged to the lead in the midst of all that, made an exchange that was relatively clean.
Yeah, that was the exchange where they used the same bikes, used two different bikes, and so the rules are that they have to touch each other, and then the other rider can jump in the race.
And so if you were wondering if there was going to be that two-team breakaway that left everybody at the back of the pack, no, there isn't. As Cutters in white make the exchange, Team Major Taylor has the lead with ACR in black second, Sigma Nu in gray third, and Alpha Tau Omega fourth. Alpha Tau Omega wearing the blue, Fiji in orange in fifth, and in sixth, Acacia wearing purple.
I believe that's Jason Fowler on the bike for Cutters. Russell Vander did a very good set, brought in a little gap for him, and you're going to see Jason Fowler get back up to the front, right where the Cutters like to be.
ACR cycling in black coming in for the exchange. Off goes Eric Durheimer, who had a very nice shift, and Ryan Schultz is on the bike, and that is a pretty good exchange because he looks over his shoulder as the leaders come on.
That was great. He actually pulled in front of the field, so they had to slow down.
Do you want to be in front, though? Do you want to be doing that much higher a percentage of the work?
Well, you know, right now they're really not going that fast. So, you know, when he did that exchange, the pack is coming by it at like a relatively slow pace. So the great move is that, you know, when he was done making his exchange, he jumped on the bike. He's back in the front. We see the riders kind of bunched up. So he's in a position to really control the pace here.
Jason, as we see the Acacia rider accelerating, getting ready for an exchange there, is the exchange thing a little bit of luck, or can you read pack mentality and sense when they're getting slow and get off the bike then?
Oh, absolutely, and the Acacia rider did it excellently. That's Brady Gibney. What you want to do is you want to wait till it slows down a little bit, drift a couple riders back, and then go for the attack. You want to go all out. You're going to hit your red line as you're going in for an exchange. As you see that Acacia rider, again, that's Brady Gibney going in for it. He set his next rider up with a very good gap.
Wow, Gibney with a terrific effort in the final lap, and he tags off. Andrew Svegros is now on the bike, and as the Dodds House rider makes a surge, Svegros is going to be in exactly the same situation you just described, Dylan, looking back at the pack and say, come and get me.
That's right. Now he put himself right back in. Look, he's going to jump on second wheel. It's exactly what you want to do when you're making exchanges. It looks like Cutters is taking this as an opportunity to do a little breakaway. Or perhaps he's going to come in and do an exchange. You know, Jason, do these guys ever fake it out like, hey, I'm going to do an exchange, but next thing you know, they're half a lap up?
Oh, of course, Dylan, because the best teams are queuing off of each other. You don't want the other team to know when you're going in for an exchange because they're going to sit on that wheel. That's David Coughlin. Looks like he's going to have to do a couple more laps because he didn't get a big enough gap.
Well, nobody was out in that pit area, more than a step off the wall when Coughlin made his initial surge, and now Coughlin may have mistimed it a bit. It is his first little 500. How much is experience a factor?
Oh, experience is a big factor. That's why you want coaches and a lot of support staff with years and years of experience. You know, they've given David a lot of knowledge, but he's going to have to sit in and recover before he goes in for his exchange.
And again, the Cutters rider is dropping back against the wall. Cutters in white, Acacia in purple, Alpha Tau Omega in blue. The top three as they cross the start-finish line. And once again, the pace slackens a little bit. Can you read the times that it's going to surge and then drop back, Dylan, or is that something that just comes with experience?
You know, I think these guys have got a lot of experience, and the race develops a sort of rhythm. So there'll be parts of the race where you're going to go flat out, and then you're going to slow down a little bit, and that's where experience really comes into play here.
Now it's a Sigma Nu's turn to try to go to the front and pull away. Sigma Nu in the all gray. I remember back in the day when shorts came in every color you can imagine, as long as you could only imagine black. Here comes the exchange. It's a fair tag for Sigma Nu, but giving up a lot of ground. And contrast that to the other exchanges we saw. Major Taylor also just made an exchange, and Acacia has gone to the front by about 20 yards. Acacia wearing the all purple ahead of Alpha Tau Omega in blue and ACR, which is in black. Let's see the exchange.
Cutter's also come in for an exchange here, but as you can see, the leaders in purple, Acacia, go by first. In the Cutter rider, you see Team Major Taylor's fine. The Cutter rider came in off the back a little bit. He's putting a lot more work on the hands of the next rider, getting on to chase and catch up with the leaders, Acacia.
All right, Acacia goes to the exchange. ACR Cycling is in the lead. Alpha Tau Omega in blue, just behind the black-clad leader, and then Team Major Taylor in green. Acacia is on the fourth spot in the purple, and as they pass traffic.
And ACR Cycling, Jack, that's the former Sigma Phi Epsilon team, and they won the race in, I think it was 1999, led by Jet Tackberry and Steve Kopak. Those guys stick around and coach them today. And they're putting on a strong performance as you see them chasing down a wheel right now. Oh, there's a little foolery, tomfoolery, bluffing going on, Dylan.
I like that.
Robert Allen putting in the surge, looking toward the pit as if he was going to make an exchange and didn't. Eddie Van Geis has an injury update for us. Eddie.
That's right, Jack. Just a moment ago, a couple of guys went down really hard on the backstretch. They were number 15 from Team 15, John Hoffman. That's Phi Delta Theta. And from Delta Upsilon Team 8, Justin Purdy. Jonathan got up. He ran to the pit. He was fine. But Justin was carted off to the medical tent. I just went in there. They were cleaning up some road rash. He appears to be okay. I don't think he'll be riding anymore today, but no broken bones. Also, I'd like to mention we were very concerned in the women's race yesterday from Team 20 Mescla, a young lady that went down really hard and had to be transported to the hospital. Everyone was very concerned. That was Josefa Marigal of Bloomington, Indiana, a rookie rider. We found out that she did break a collarbone, but everybody's relieved. They thought initially that her injuries were a lot more serious. So some good news about the women's race yesterday. Let's go back up to the booth to Jack and the gang.
Excellent reporting, Eddie. Thank you very much. And I guess a collarbone in that situation, Dylan, is actually some pretty good news because the medics were all over her.
Yeah, you know, that is good news because from experience, I can tell you that collarbones heal pretty quickly, and it's pretty much the cost of doing business when you're a bike rider.
She can wear it as a badge of courage. It was a horrific-looking crash. Here's an exchange as we see Briscoe going in hard.
That's the communication we talked about earlier, Jack. These riders, they can't be right next to each other in the vertical line. They got to separate it, give a couple feet between the two to do exchanges at the same time.
All right, let's set the leaders for you once again as they come to the start-finish line. In orange, that's Fiji. In white, it is Cutters. In green, it is Team Major Taylor. In purple, it is Acacia. In the yellow and blue, it is Dodds House. In all blue, it's Alpha Tau Omega. The pack is tightly bunched right there.
And that's Charlie Kraus on the bike for Phi Gamma Delta. He's an experienced guy. He's smart enough to know that he's going to pull. He's going to blend in with the pack before he goes in for an exchange. He's riding a really good set.
Did you see that a little? Thought we'd have a little communication, but then we almost crashed. It's kind of an unwritten rule in bike racing. That's you don't take your hands off the bars. And we saw that almost led to a crash.
So I think we need to go out and say it. That's the big dog on the front. That's Craig Lugans for Dodds House. He's had an awesome spring here at the track, and he's just really set the precedent today. Dodds House has been attacking time after time again, and now you see him on the front doing tons of work.
Jason, you were one of those riders who took a disproportionate part of the load for your team. It's a race scheduled for 200 laps. Is this the kind of performance we're going to see from Dodds House? Are they hoping that one guy can carry him?
They're hoping that one guy can keep him on that lead lap till the end. Yes, he's going to ride a lot of laps, but he knows he's just going to have to suck it up, do it today, maybe ride in excess of 100 laps out here on this quarter-mile track. He's going to do a lot of work in hopes of keeping his team and keeping that tradition for Dodds House alive.
To the start-finish line once again. ACR rider signaling almost in a smoking gesture, as if to say, I got a little bit left in me, or is it time to go? What does that gesture mean?
That's a good question. You also saw the Cutters rider right in the gutter there. That's a little cement gutter used for drainage. You can go in the gutter. The rule is that you can't improve your advantage while you're in the gutter, but of course you can go in there to avoid a wreck or avoid contact.
Of course he's speaking literally, not figuratively. We try to keep everything above the table here on HDNet.
Jason, we call that gutter ball racing.
You do a little bit of the pomade, a little bit of that on the pomade. You're always trying to find the good line.
Oh yeah, we would use anything possible to get to the front.
ACR rider surging to the lead as they cross the start-finish line. ACR in all black. Cutters rider in the white jersey with the black shorts going with him, and the Dodds House rider is staying right with them. This is a high-quality pace line there, just ripping down the back stretch, and now they're going to let the ACR rider go. He's getting ready for an exchange.
And this is wonderful. You see the best teams on the front. They're chasing that rider down. They don't want him to get too big of a gap. Here comes ACR in exchange. Let's see how it goes. It's a bike-to-bike.
That's Chappie Blackwell off to Ryan Schultz. And Schultz joins the pack about 15 back. Fiji in orange is on the lead with Alpha Tau Omega in blue second, and Dodds House in the yellow and blue third. Cutters in white.
Oh, look at Chappie Blackwell moving up there. That name's been around the Little 500 for a long time. His father and his grandfather had something to do with the race. They were once carried the flag down there on the track and waved the checkered flag. So you see years and years of tradition, the same people, the same names coming back and being a part of it.
Racing under the green flag. This will be 69 laps, and Alpha Tau Omega in blue on the front. This is HDNet Sports live coverage of the Little 500 coming away from the campus of Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, alongside Jason Sonneborn and Dylan Casey with Eddie Van Geist down at the infield and our HDNet crew. I'm Jack Edwards. Glad you could be with us for this one-of-a-kind event in American college sports. It is an intramural event. If you're a Cat 1 or Cat 2 rider, in other words, an elite rider with national or world-class potential or performance, you are ineligible to ride in this great race. So it really is a student event.
It's amazing. Look at how many kids are out here to see this race. This is an awesome turnout for a bike race.
And Dylan, you know, we were out riding around yesterday with some guys. We were out on the town last night. I think you know a little bit. What does it mean to be a bike racer and a Little 500 rider here in Bloomington today?
Yeah, you know, these guys are, and ladies actually, are really the BMOCs on campus for about a month. It's really something great to see.
Alpha Tau Omega getting set for an exchange, currently on the lead. I believe it's Tom Mearsman who's going to make a bike exchange as well as a rider exchange. And Mearsman is off. Hans Arneson is on. That's the same exchange we saw in the very first exchange of the afternoon for Alpha Tau Omega, and they stay on the lead.
And you'll see that, Jack. You'll see the order is set. A lot of times one rider will bring it into the next. Those are the two strongest riders for Alpha Tau Omega. See them exchanging throughout the day as ATO, the team in blue, goes right off the front on a little attack with a fresh rider.
And that is Arneson, and if you recall, he did that once before, starting off his ride with a surge, and he's out there solo.
Hans Arneson, he was fourth in individual time trials. As I've already said, finals of missing out. He's been setting the precedent, setting the bar all spring. He's doing a lot of work right now, but he's picked up a quarter lap on the pack. Dylan, what's it like to be out there on the front when you're time trialing? What are you thinking about? You were an exceptional time trialist, picked up a national championship. What could Hans be thinking right now?
Well, you know, he's probably thinking, what am I going to do to maintain this pace or this distance? And perhaps he wants to maintain a little bit of his advantage, yet at the same time, if another rider like we're seeing can come across, he might hesitate and wait a little bit.
As you see, you called it, Dylan, the Phi Gamma Delta rider who's coming in for an exchange right now. Let's see how the Fiji exchange works out, the team in orange.
Joseph Keck gets on the bike, and that second pack goes right by him, so he's going to have to catch up to get up with them. The Dodds House rider is leading that second pack, but he's still about 50 yards behind the Alpha Tau Omega rider. Let's go back to look at the exchange. This is Fiji in orange.
Fiji's, they qualify well every year, so they're really good at exchanges. They lost a little ground on the ATOs when they did come in for that exchange, but their rider certainly strong. I think that's the other Matt Davis and Charlie Krause. They're going to move up in the pack.
Alpha Tau Omega in blue on the lead, and the trailing pack of leaders is working its way through some lapped riders, so it's a little bit confusing right now. The man in blue, Alpha Tau Omega, is a lap ahead of all those riders immediately behind him. So they are actually giving ground and will have to yield. The man in orange just going into turn 4 right there is from Fiji. He is on the same lap. He is in second place behind the Alpha Tau Omega rider.
And Dylan, that's the kind of interesting thing about Little 500. Yeah, he's on the front. You see him looking for help. It really means nothing to be dangling out there, 200 meters in the front unless you can get a lap.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, he really wants somebody to come across him, and he'd rather have 1 or 2 riders come up than the whole field, because then, if the whole pack comes up to him, it's like all his energy was for nothing. But if maybe 1 or 2 riders, like we're seeing, one of the Major Taylor riders, and he keeps looking back saying, hey, come on, you guys.
Well, that's Phi Gamma Delta in orange that he's got there with him. They're on the lead lap, and they're certainly a contender today. So now you have 2 teams with a little bit of an advantage.
It's starting to get sorted out here. Fiji in orange ahead of Alpha Tau Omega in blue. Major Taylor looking for an exchange here. It's going to be a bike exchange. No, they're saying go around again. Some bad communication from Team Major Taylor and teammates barking at each other, and it looked as if the Major Taylor rider may have spent it.
Oh, that's really going to hurt him, that miscommunication, because he has essentially let up and given his all-out effort, his red line to get the gap, and now he's hurt and he's drifting back through the pack.
How bad is it to hit that wall and still have 400 meters left?
Oh, I'm sure when he was coming into the pit and they were waving him off, that's the worst thing he wants to see. So not only was he making a huge effort to come in and do an exchange, but then he's got to go back out and do another lap, and he's already hit the limit. I mean, when your legs are full of acid, they just come to a screeching halt. So he's really hurting right now.
All right, the pole sitters making an exchange. They'll make the exchange 100 yards back. Let's see how far back they are when the rider gets up to speed. He's down 110 now. He's down 120 now, but now he's putting the hammer down. Let's see as they cross the end line of the soccer field. He's down 120 yards exactly. That's going to be a hard pull to get back to that lead pack.
He's got it straight away. It looks like it, and you see the cutters on the front. They need to be dropping the hammer, turning the screw right now, trying to get away from Team Major Taylor a little bit. They know that he's only got a couple laps of all-out effort in his legs.
Oh,
he's really moving, though. That's Simeon Commission. That's our fastest man on the track. Let's see if he can catch him.
This is amazing. I mean, he just closed about a half-lap deficit in less than a lap.
He's a sprinter from a track background. You know he can turn it. He's going to do short sets, though, Dylan. Now, this is going to be interesting to see what he does here. Is he smart enough to sit in and recover before he goes in for an exchange?
He's already dropped his cadence way down. He had it up around $130, and now he's easing through the corner. An incredible effort from Commission.
Yeah, I bet Simeon is just going to hang out back there, because the ATO riders and the cutter rider on the front of the pack right now, who are trying to turn the screws a little bit, might not necessarily know that he's back on, and he's kind of hiding out.
And that's what they do well. You saw him kind of hide out throughout the race last year, not do a lot of work, but be there at the end. They could be looking for the same kind of finish, the sprint finish this year.
Yeah, that was a great effort on Simeon's part to close that huge deficit down.
Commission in the green jersey wearing number 1.
And what I really like as a bike racer, Dylan, he's smart. He knows his limits. He knows he's going to make up the ground, and then he's going to recover before he goes again.
Yeah, when you're closing a gap like that, it's a lot better to do it quickly than to let it draw out for 5 or 10 laps.
Did you ever see the pack ahead of you, Dylan, just a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You've done the Tour of Flanders. You've done some other Belgian classics. What's one of your favorites?
All of those races were incredible. I just couldn't imagine how a country has so many people that are so into cycling. But being here at the Little 500, starting to understand why it's possible here too.
Did you ever see 20,000 people at a bike race in Belgium?
Certainly not these types of people. I'll tell you that for sure.
We're happy to have you. We're working with an elite crew here today. Jack Edwards has been in the business a long time. I'm lucky to be working with both of them.
I'll tell you what, this is as good as it gets. I don't know why I waited 25 years to come to my first.
And that's what I got a kick out of yesterday is Jack and Dylan and guys that hadn't seen the event yesterday excited about the women's finish. It was something that you thought was worth coming to, worth televising. It's beautiful, isn't it?
It's all time. I'll tell you what, you got to go to the website and get on for next year because this is something nobody should pass up. And oh, by the way, it does help working students with scholarship aid. So, as they cross the start-finish line, Dodds House in the yellow and blue in front, Fiji, Phi Gamma Delta in orange, second, Alpha Tau Omega in blue, third, Cutters in white, fourth, ACR in black, fifth, Acacia in purple, sixth. And those are your leaders as they are now more than 80 laps into this race scheduled for 200. And gents, by the way, we spent a good deal of time talking about rain in the beginning of this program. It stopped as soon as we started talking about it.
Yeah. Maybe that's a great thing for the riders. I'm sure they were happy about that. And we're checking the Doppler radar, and it's looking like the storm is just going to miss us.
That's meteorologist Dylan Casey. Alpha Tau Omega in blue on the lead. Cutters in white second. Acacia in purple third. The Fiji rider surging to the outside, going from fifth to first. Looks as if this is an exchange coming, and the Fiji fans are up and screaming in support.
They're gonna give him a yell when he comes in. Chris Vargo is really holding his wheel for Cutters, the team in white. They're not letting them get any advantage, and that's Charlie Krause trying to get away for Phi Gamma Delta.
Swinging wide. Fiji coming in for the exchange. Let's see how much time they give up. And some communication at the front, almost as if to say, let's punish Fiji for this. And he does go from first to last in the lead pack, but he hangs onto the back of the peloton, if you will, and that'll help him a little bit picking his way through. ACR making a surge. Let's go downstairs to Eddie Van Geis.
Yeah, we've got Courtney Bishop here, and he's a very busy man. Courtney, your thoughts on the race? You happy with the development?
Just trying to hang in there. We're just trying to hang in. We need a little time, though.
You adjusted any strategy, any changes?
Not at all. Don't know what's going to happen. Just trying to get lucky.
There you have it, guys. A very intense Courtney Bishop of Major Taylor. We'll be back with you, Jack, in a moment to talk to Jim Kirkham and see what the Cutters' thoughts are.
All right, Briscoe exchanging, ACR exchanging. Some of the leaders coming in and making switches.
Yeah, and Courtney Bishop, the coach of Team Major Taylor, he's certainly got a challenge on his hands. He knows he doesn't have one of the strongest teams in the pack, but he has one of the strongest individual riders. They finished 8th in team pursuit, but Simeon Commission, the winner of missing out, he could be around at the end and he'll win it.
We see the exchanges here. Not too much damage done in the exchanges. Explain, if you can, in a nutshell, what missing out is.
Well, missing out, as Dylan knows, is patterned after a track race in which the last rider around each lap gets pulled out. So it's kind of like whoever the strongest man is at the end is standing is the winner. Like I said, 6 guys start, slowest guy each lap pulled off the back, and then they sprint at the end. It's Simeon, the rider on Team Major Taylor, who won that event earlier in March.
Yeah, you know, Jason, maybe you can talk about some of the events that lead up to today. The qualification, the team time trials.
Yeah, there's 3 events, Dylan. There's individual time trials, which was won by Chris Vargo on Cutters. As I just mentioned, missing out, won by Simeon Commission. Team pursuit's also a very, very good indicator of how strong an overall team is. That was won by Cutters as well. Team pursuit's a 15-lap race against the clock when all 4 riders are out there at the same time.
There are the qualifications. Acacia in purple making an exchange. The rider's got to do a little hustling here, but to his benefit, the pack slows down. What's going on with Cutters from the pits? Eddie Van Geis is there.
This is Coach Kirkham of the Cutters, and Jimmy, bring us up to date. Your thoughts on the race right now? You've been setting the pace a lot, but you've got a shadow, and that shadow's called Major Taylor.
Right, Major Taylor, we're trying to keep the pace up to eliminate the big pack, but we're not getting too much cooperation from other teams. Major Taylor is clearly shadowing us, which we're not really worried about at this point. We're just going to concentrate on keeping it tempo high and worry about Major Taylor towards the end of the race.
Jimmy, your team considered the strongest. You got to be happy, though. A lot of people that have ridden in this race know you separate the men from the boys in the second half of the race, and it says lap 88, we're not even at the halfway point.
That's right, Eddie. There's a long way to go, and we just have to ride in smart position, continue setting tempo, and let the race come to us.
There you have it, a very confident Cutter coach. Jack, what do you think? He's very pleased with his team thus far.
All right, it's starting to shake out. But Dylan, now we're seeing lapped teams get caught by this lead pack. What's the dynamic that's going on? Obviously, there's a right of way. The slower riders have to get out of the way, but is it a chance for the leaders to put a little distance between themselves and those who are getting gapped?
Well, you know, what happens is when you're on the lead lap and you catch up to some of these other riders, you all come back together as a larger group, and you know, in some ways that can be great, because if you're trying to do an exchange, you have that many more riders to try to catch back up, because as we've seen, when you're doing an exchange, the rider coming in often has to close the gap. Well, if the field is bigger, it's a lot easier to close that gap. However, at the same time, if you're on one of the lead laps, you don't want these guys that have been lapped to kind of get in your way, the riffraff, so to speak. So there's kind of an unwritten rule that if you've been lapped and you want to ride with the leaders, you got to stay at the back.
The Cutters rider, Chris Vargo, looking over his shoulder and seeing Simeon Commission of Team Major Taylor.
Yeah, so we were just seeing some like code words on Major Taylor's board.
And we saw NASDAQ, so who knows what that can mean. I mean, it is an index as a whole.
And maybe it means nothing. Maybe they're just trying to get inside their opponents' heads.
I think it means an exchange, because Simeon's been out there. He did a lot of work to catch back up with the lead pack. He's getting the bulk laps right now, and I think NASDAQ might be explode when it can happen. Come in for an exchange.
Well, nobody is standing up in that pit area. Cutters in white on the lead. Acacia in purple in second. Fiji in orange in third. Sigma Chi in the gray and white is on the lead lap.
They are on the lead lap. An interesting fact about them, Carl Bourdin, a guy that rode in, I think it was the mid-90s for them. They went to train with him. He's a professional cyclist out in California. Another instance of just former riders passing down that knowledge, passing down the opportunity to get some fitness and get a team up there on the lead lap like Sigma Chi's done today. That's Acacia in purple on the front. They're riding an impressive race. As you see Cutters, Chris Vargo right on their wheel. These top teams, the interesting thing about it, we talk about teams that are a lap down. The top teams, they have the respect. They're going to be the guys on the front. They demand that respect. The other teams aren't going to move up there.
Chris Vargo of Cutters in white on the lead. Brady Gibney of Acacia in purple in second place. The Sigma Chi team in the gray and white is in third.
So you saw the Cutters rider pull off the front and let the ATO guy to the front, but he kind of pointed out like, hey, I want that wheel when you go by. So he's calling out his position, and the nice thing is there's a little bit of ethics going on here. It's kind of an unwritten rule that, you know, let's all work together at this point in the race. We still have over 100 laps to go.
Are there bad guys within the pack? Are there guys who can ask for help and not get it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, these guys have been riding together and racing together for a long time, and people don't forget things. The stuff that happened the year before will definitely have a factor in what happens today.
Jason, Team Major Taylor created some baggage for itself with an eligibility controversy a few years back. Is that dirty laundry still hanging around, or has that all been forgotten?
I think there's a little bit of, from what I've heard, I spent the week talking to the riders, there's a lot of fire that still goes into this, and that has not been forgotten yet, and I'm sure there's a lot of teams out there, just as anyone, that would like to get an edge up and win the checkered flag over Team Major Taylor today.
As Fiji in orange makes the exchange, Dodds House surges to the front. Looks as if Dodds House is getting ready for an exchange here. And you see the orange and blue rider from Dodds House making the exchange. It's within the pits just barely. The pack goes on by. Team Major Taylor out in front, and Team Major Taylor getting ready for an exchange.
And here comes Simeon. He's my one-lap wonder. He can sure turn a one-lapper.
Man, that rear wheel wiggled on him. Something fierce coming out of 4. And Team Major Taylor makes the exchange, keeps the rider with the lead pack. And again, it's 46 teeth on the chain ring in front and 18 teeth on the sprocket in back. That's a tough gear ratio to get it up and going in a hurry.
And he sure does well. They need to be patting Simeon on the back down there. He did an awesome job to keep his team with the leaders. As we only have about 5 or 6, 7 teams on the lead lap right now. A couple of those, Phi Gamma Delta in orange is on the front. You see ACR Cycling in black right behind him. And that's Sigma Chi, who's also there, team number 11. They're coming in for an exchange. Let's watch.
John Garman gets off. Jeff Haller gets on. And if Haller can turn the crank quickly enough, he's going to stay on the back of the lead pack, and he does. The Sigma Nu rider in gray is down a lap, so it appears that he's leading, but actually he's just helping the guys who are out in front. The burgundy rider, Briscoe, now surges to the front, but it'll only last a second as Briscoe's about to make an exchange. In black, behind the gray-clad Sigma Nu rider, it's ACR. That's going to be the de facto race leader. Oh, they're going to go by a lap. They're going to let it go. Couldn't get in because he was pinned on the inside.
He was pinned on the inside. You saw a rider that was on the outside a couple laps down, not move out of the way. Really what the Briscoe rider should have done is gone around to the right side on the outside.
And it's starting to rain. We're 97 laps into this race. It'll be official after 4 more. Here's the rider getting pinned to the inside. You got to be on the outside to make an exchange. And you know what? That Briscoe rider has a pretty big engine, because after giving his all in that previous lap, he's still got something left here, and his heart rate's only doing about $198 right now. That's Jared Hoff handing off, and I believe it's Mike Carey getting on the bike. Cutters runs into traffic. ACR runs into traffic. And believe it or not, Briscoe stays on the lead.
And what a great story Briscoe is. Briscoe's a residence hall here on campus. They don't really have much of a tradition, but I think they have 4 really motivated guys that are out riding for the residence hall today.
Briscoe qualified 16th and finished 16th a year ago. On the lead pack in white, Cutters is in the lead. This race is going to be official in about 5 more minutes. It's starting to sprinkle. The cinders are getting a little bit damp, so as fatigue sets in, add to that the fact that we're now going to have a little bit more wiggly surface. Dodds House rider goes to the front. Looks as if an exchange is coming here for Dodds, wearing the blue and yellow. They got one of the big guys standing by in the pits, so we could see a surge here. It's going to be a bike and rider exchange.
And I'm pretty sure that's Craig Lukens, the big horse, so we're getting back there on the bike. He's going to do a lot of work today, but it's well-deserved.
You can't mount the bike until you've made the tag, so sometimes you give up a little bit of momentum, but he gets back into the pack. And Dodds House, which has been on or near the lead all day long, is going to stay right up there, and you're right, it is Lukens as he comes by. The riders have little colored tags on their helmets. That is their sole individual identification. And look at Lukens' power. Goes through to the inside, and he is on the lead.
What a great story. I talked to Jonathan Vaughters a little bit earlier about what type of rider makes a good little 500 rider. Obviously, a big engine comes into play. You also have to be a pretty big guy, a pretty strong guy in order to push that big gear. You're not climbing any hills out here in the little 500, and it takes a big guy to be able to turn that gear, just as Craig Lukens is doing very well for Dodds House, the team on front.
This is an official race right now, 101 laps down. So even if we were to get black flagged because of suddenly horrible weather, something that is almost unimaginable now because they'll race in some pretty shaky conditions, we have a race for the 2004 Little 500. On the lead right now in gray and white, it is Sigma Chi with Cutters second. That's Sincere Cycling in the pink going by, but they are down at least a lap. Cutters in white is on the lead. The gray rider from the outside, Sigma Nu, also down a lap. Team Major Taylor in white is in second place. So it's Cutters, Team Major Taylor, Sigma Chi, Briscoe, and Dodds House as the pack really slows down.
And that's something that Dylan and I talked about earlier. Unlike the Tour de France, when Lance is the team leader and all his teammates are out there supporting him at the same time, in this race, you have to rely on guys, that your 2, 3, 4 guys to be on the bike while the team leader might be sitting out for a little while.
You're right, Jason. This is a really unique event in that you can have an individual who's a really strong rider, but if your team isn't strong, it's really not going to help you. And we saw that yesterday in the women's race. Who it was Corey Bitts, one of the strongest riders out there, but her team just couldn't support her, and so we saw a totally different outcome. And so you're right. This is a team sport, no doubt about it.
Phi Gamma Delta in orange, leading. Acacia in purple. Dodds House in blue and yellow third. Cutters in white fourth. Team Major Taylor in green fifth. You see a rider going for an exchange on the outside. He is not on the lead lap. And it continues to be Acacia in front of Dodds House and Fiji as they head into turn 3 on this, the 104th lap about to be completed out of a scheduled 200. They'll go a shade over 51 miles. The track is 410 meters long. It was built specifically for the Little 500. This race originally was held at the old 10th Street Stadium, which is long gone and now is an arboretum at the center of the IU campus in Bloomington. This stadium houses the legendary IU soccer program, which is the defending and current NCAA champions in men's soccer. Alpha Tau Omega now making a surge, and Briscoe's right on his wheel. Briscoe's looking for an exchange here, and so is Alpha Tau Omega. Let's see how they do. Alpha Tau Omega in blue, Briscoe in the burgundy as they come to the start-finish line for the exchange.
All right, communication is key here. They're going to have to weave between each other. Great exchange by ATO.
Chris
Briscoe,
Bentz
they
is
both
on.
pull it off.
Chris Bentz is on for ATO. Sorry to interrupt you there, Jason.
It's interesting you mentioned the IU soccer team winning the national championship. We have 4 former IU soccer players that have a team out here today. I think they're team number 27.
Yep.
So those football fanatics at home, you have someone to root for.
And those guys, talk about paying the price. Mike Freitag, the new coach since Jerry Yeagley's very recent retirement after just winning the NCAA title. They had their spring practice, and then after, there's the IU soccer effort there, wearing number 27 in the blue and orange. After they'd have their practice, then they'd go out and train. Let's talk about two-a-days.
It's a tough reality for them. I read where they mentioned the other day that running is a little bit different muscles than cycling. So although they are in great shape, I don't think they have quite the shape and the cycling endurance to stay up there today.
Acacia making a big surge. That's a signal of an exchange to come. Acacia in the all-purple. And the Acacia rider is out with a big smile on his face. They're feeling pretty confident. Acacia known for the ghost exchange, except that's when you stay on the bike. This is a bluff. They're going to go one more lap. So this is a half mile at full throttle for a cyclist. As a track champion, Dylan, how long can you keep it going?
Well, you know, it's really important that this guy kind of understands what his limits are. I mean, he's obviously trying to make a move here. Is he going to make an exchange? I kind of think so, because there's 100 laps to go. So this is a great opportunity to make an exchange. I think it's too early to try to make a breakaway.
He's got 120 yards on the pack, but he's stuck inside. Tons of traffic as he weaves his way through. Somehow got there. That was pretty good riding in a tough situation. And Acacia stays on the lead about 40 yards clear of the pack as the rest of them come to the start-finish line.
And that's Brady Gibney that just did a great set for Acacia. The team in purple. He brought in a great gap for his second rider.
Little dicey here, Dylan.
That was great maneuvering.
You see the communication that needs to come into play. He's trying to get his way outside. He's bringing it in for an exchange.
Boy, you think about what could happen if he had to go another 410 meters after totally giving it up for 2 full laps. But Acacia is out in front and using some of that slower traffic to its advantage. They are screaming at the rider who's out there right now for Acacia. I think it is Brady Gibney on the bike, or is that Robert Allen?
I think it's Robert Allen, their number 2 guy. Both of those guys are strong, so it's tough to tell them apart, Jack. I was talking to one of their coaches, Kurt Gensheimer, earlier today. He was big accolades to these guys. The alumni are really involved this year. They think they're going to have a strong team. As you can see him trying to make a move with only 90 laps to go.
Al, he's only up by about 45 yards, and he's doing so much of the work all by himself. As a pace line of about 9 riders tries to reel him in. Acacia, that was a very short shift. Here comes the ghost exchange as he actually lets go of the bike and hands off to Andrew Svengros. And Svengros is now shoulder to shoulder with the Cutters rider and drops off. So that fantasy died quickly. Svengros goes right back to the front. Here's the ghost exchange.
Yeah, you're going to see no rider touching the bike at this time. Guy getting off comes off the back, and the other guy does the leap of faith. He's on. He's trying to move back up there with the leaders as quickly as he can. The Acacias do the exchanges a little bit differently than the normal team, with nobody touching the bike at one point in time.
All right, so now we're up to 110 laps, and Acacia's getting a signal. There's just one more lap coming. They're going short shifts. What's going on, Eddie Van Geis?
Well, we've got Rico Riley here, the Acacia team. Your team looks good. Tell us about your feelings.
We got 3 fourth-year seniors, so we got a really experienced squad. We're trying to mix it up a little bit here.
What teams are you focusing on most?
Fiji's, Cutters, and ATOs right now.
All right. All right, Rico, any predictions on this one?
We're going to win today.
All right, there you have it, a very confident Acacia coach. Let's go back upstairs to Team JDJ.
All right, thanks much. It's about a 110-yard lead on the pack, but they're charging hard. They know what's going on. No mystery here as Acacia goes short shifts and tries to put a gap on, but Cutters with a big surge. Team Major Taylor also there. The gap has gone away. Cutters makes the exchange. They give up about 50 or 60 yards, and that rider's going to have a lot of work to do.
Acacia dropped a chain.
Yeah, he's got a lot of trouble.
Acacia
he's gliding.
dropped a chain.
Oh, they got a miserable problem here. Acacia had done such good hard work. Now, wait a second.
He looks back together.
Oh, he got it back.
I don't know if maybe they got a flat. I don't know what the situation is, but he keeps the bike moving. He's okay.
The bike looks fine, so he's going to continue to ride it. Mechanic was ready to sprint across the other side, but it looks to be functional.
No, he's
right
okay.
back on there. He's giving it the okay sign. He says, give me some more laps.
All right, Dodds House on the lead. Sigma Chi coming in for an exchange. Dodds House in the yellow and blue on the lead. Team Major Taylor, the pole sitters in green, second. And Briscoe in burgundy, third, along with Alpha Tau Omega, which has kind of dropped back in the top 10, but they're staying right there with the leaders. Alpha Tau Omega carried a lot of the early pace, but they are still right there.
It's interesting, isn't it, Jack? Because you see a couple teams off the front attacking all day long, kind of like Dodds House is, like Acacia is doing. Then you see other teams, Team Major Taylor, just kind of sitting in, Phi Gamma Delta sitting in, waiting for that sprint. There's a lot of different strategy that goes into this.
What happened on that Acacia bike, Eddie Van Geist?
Rico Riley, what happened with your bike there? We know that your heartbeat all of a sudden increased quite a bit. What happened?
We think he popped the chain or the rear wheel. Something popped off.
And then his communication to you as he came by, what was he signaling?
He said he needs a new bike.
All right, so they're getting ready to make a bike exchange, fellas. Look at this. Acacia, team number 9 in purple, riding a great race. They're worried about that bike. They're not going to take any chances. And right now you're going to see them make a bike exchange.
We're up to about 30 miles an hour on the track right now. Acacia looking for the exchange. Team Major Taylor and ACR have really put the hammer down. They're both coming in for exchanges. Alpha Tau Omega is on the lead in blue, with Fiji in orange second.
And Jack, that's something that's really unique to the Little 500. These riders only have 2 bikes to work with between 4 guys, so if something goes wrong with one of them, they have one more out there until they get this next one fixed. You see, that's Kurt Gensheimer, who holds the individual time trial record. He's going to try to change it and get it working as quickly as he can.
How important are techs to your fate, Dylan, as a rider?
Oh, I can't tell you how many times that, the outcome has totally been dependent upon the whole staff that supports the team. And, mechanics are crucial, and oftentimes they're kind of behind the scenes and don't get enough recognition, but they're very much a part of these teams, and it's great to see them doing such a great job out here.
Kind of analogous to television, by the way. We get all the credit, they do all the work. And we've got as fine a crew working with us this weekend in Bloomington as ever. Hats off to everybody who set us up yesterday and has us on the air again today. ATO, Alpha Tau Omega in blue on the lead. Dodds House in yellow and blue, shoulder to shoulder.
And if I'm Rico Riley in the pit, the coach of Acacia, I'm a little bit concerned right now about where they're riding. You see that purple jersey of Acacia in the back of the pack. You always run the risk of it going down in a wreck when you're in the back of the pack.
The Chi Phi rider in yellow and green is down a lap, not on the lead. It's Dodds House with Cutters and Sigma Chi and Alpha Tau Omega and Fiji. Those are the leaders as we get set to take another break. They are working on the Acacia bike big time. Little divine intervention kept that thing from wrecking completely on the backstretch. They're still in it. We'll be right back to Bloomington live on HDNet. The Acacia rider making a surge to the front as we return to the Little 500. And now they're down to just one bike. Can they make a clean exchange? And does he have the same inseam length?
Wow,
it appears that he does, and that was pretty sweet as Andrew Svengros, who just rode a killer set his last time out, stays right in front of the leaders.
Jack, I think that's the best exchange we've seen all day long.
Let's go downstairs to Eddie to find out just what happened with Acacia a few laps back.
Well, Jack, as you mentioned, the Acacia team really did escape disaster. It could have been very, very bad because this rear wheel has a defective hub right now. Their rider, when he wanted to torque on the pedals, it was slipping right here in this hug mechanism right there, the hub. So anyway, they made a wheel change, and the camp in the Acacia pit, they're happy again. They're content. They're riding a great race, but they escaped the dangerous one. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Eddie Van Geist. Our tape room is on fire in the truck, man. That was nice to find that replay. Fiji with a surge. That signals that there is an exchange coming unless this is a bluff. We are on lap 122, scheduled for 200, and it looks as if it's all going to get in unless there is some incredible downpour, which is unforeseen.
Jack, if we can get a shot of the start-finish banner, I think we're going to see how the wind is starting to pick up.
And they are going into the wind on the home stretch here. A clean exchange from Steve Spencer to Joseph Keck. And Keck is looking back at the leaders. That's just where Fiji wants to be, in orange, on the lead.
Oh, and they got a little gap now. They know they have a fresh rider. This is Joe Keck on the bike in the second race. Very well-coached team. They're smart enough to be up front, out of the traffic all day long. Phi Gamma Delta is riding a great race.
ACR Cycling looks as if it's coming in for an exchange. Alpha Tau Omega has a rider near the front, but nobody's stepping out in the pits, so maybe he's just going up to join the Fiji rider. He's right on the wheel of the ACR rider. ACR wants to get outside Fiji, had a little bit of trouble getting outside, but Ryan Schultz hands off, and David Jordan, the number 1 rider for ACR, is on, but he almost gets spat out the back on the exchange.
Yeah, he's off the back, and what we have here is we have 2 riders up the road a little bit. We have an ATO rider, and we have Joe Keck on Phi Gamma Delta. They're really dropping the hammer, trying to separate themselves from the field, as you see the Sigma Chi guy in the back trying to pick it up and chase them down.
Fiji in orange, Alpha Tau Omega in blue. Could it break apart here? Could these 2 guys lose themselves from the pack? Although the Cutters rider's making a huge surge here.
Yeah, but Cutters is coming in for an exchange, Jack. That's going to slow them down. Fiji's and ATO's team in orange and blue need to be aware of that. They need to keep going right now.
Jason Fowler's on the bike. He's the stud. We got a lot of number 1s out there, Dylan. Is this a crucial point in the race? 75 laps to go.
I think it is, because if we can see the Major Taylor rider who just bridged up to the 2 other riders. So we have a 3-rider breakaway right when the Cutters were doing an exchange. So, you know, the Cutters are the other players in this race, so this is a real opportunity here for a breakaway to happen, but it's hard to say with all the traffic in there.
And here comes Briscoe getting set for an exchange. This will be Jared Hoff getting on the bike, taking it from Timothy Smith. And Hoff is on, but there goes that 3-rider break, so he's going to have to hustle right off the start.
And look who's smart enough to be there, Dylan. Team Major Taylor sitting on the back of that breakaway. Smart enough to be there.
Well, yeah, you know, we saw that he followed the Cutters when they were going to do an exchange, and that actually helped him bridge up to the Phi Gamma Delta and the ATOs. So that was a really good move on his part.
You see the Cutter rider, that's Jason Fowler. He's trying to move up on the outside. The outside's a tough place to be because, as our geometry teachers taught us, that's a little bit longer line. He's going to need to get up there where he can get on the inside line.
Alpha Tau Omega in blue, Fiji in orange, Team Major Taylor in green. We got a wreck down in turn 4.
This is interesting. Jason Fowler for Cutters, the team in white, he's trying to make up a little bit of ground. He won the race last year for Gafami. He knows he can do it. Let's see if he can close this gap. He's kind of in no man's land right now, but he's making up a lot of ground. You see him up in that saddle, turning those pedals hard.
The ACR rider has joined the 3-man break, and indeed, here comes Fowler from Cutters in the white. Alpha Tau Omega going for an exchange. Mearsman is off and Arneson is on.
And you also saw Simeon Commission on Team Major Taylor. He dropped down about 4 fingers. I think he's going to do a short set and come in for an exchange. They haven't been doing any work in this breakaway. They're content just to sit in, let ACR and Phi Gams do the work.
ACR in black on the lead, Phi Gamma Delta or Fiji in orange in second, Team Major Taylor, the pole sitters wearing the green in third. Alpha Tau Omega with a big surge on the outside and going into the lead. Arneson, wow, he made up about 80 yards in that 1 lap.
That was a great move. You know, he's really going straight to the front, and
here comes Simeon.
Simeon's coming around over the top, and I'll bet he's coming in for an exchange. This is a great time to do an exchange.
You saw Kenny Burgess getting ready to take the bike from Simeon Commission, who looks over his inside shoulder, puts the head down.
And this is what you call a burnout. I'm not giving him any slack for sitting in because he rode a great set and got a great gap for his next rider.
It was about 70 yards when he started to slow, and Team Major Taylor stays pretty close and drops the wheel right in rhythm. So, in black, it is ACR ahead of Fiji in orange. Alpha Tau Omega in blue, Cutters in white, Sigma Chi in gray and white, Briscoe in burgundy, Team Major Taylor in green. Those are the top 6 as they come around. Eddie's in the pits. What do you got?
We got Troy Lewis here with the Fiji team. And Coach, your thoughts on the race so far? You guys look good.
Yeah, I feel pretty good. We just need a big wreck. You know, we need to be out of it. None of us want to see last year's race repeated. We don't want to have that many teams on lead lap, man, and that's what we're trying to do.
If there's 2 teams you want to key off of, who are they?
us and whoever's in front of us. You know, I mean, there's too many good teams out here, and Lady Luck can happen to anybody, and that's what we need.
Can you win it in a sprint finish?
I don't know. We've won a sprint finish before whenever they think we couldn't, so you never know.
All right, and Troy's honest because the Fijis are one of the winningest teams in the 500. They've won this race 6 times, Jack. Watch Team Orange. They're a good one, having a great ride today.
The blue flag with the orange diagonal stripe was out. Thank you, Eddie. And that means a signal for the slower riders to get the heck out of the way, as Cutters in white has the lead on the inside. That's a Sigma new rider down a lap in gray, going to the front, getting ready for an exchange. But the lead pack right now is picking its way through lap riders. Big crash on the back stretch. It does not involve any of the teams on the lead lap, and it looks as if everybody was able to get out of trouble. Do survival instincts take over in a situation like that, Dylan?
You know,
we're under yellow.
Yeah, when you have a crash like that, the first thing you want to do is just jump right back up on the bike. But, you know, we saw this. These guys are getting tired. They're not paying as close attention, and a little overlap of wheels, and next thing you know, you got 3 guys surfing on the pavement.
Riders from Collins and Wilkie Cycling going down there. And you're wearing the track after you go tumbling like that. Jason, are the medics just asking the rider to keep it in one piece here for a minute and let the adrenaline wear off, figure out exactly where the hurt is?
Yeah, it's painful going down in those cinders. He's going to end up with some cuts in his legs and cinders inside of those legs. It's going to last a lifetime. He'll remember that wreck. Let's just pray that he's okay and he can get up.
The cyclists shave their legs, and it's not a wind resistance thing, folks. It's to avoid infection after the inevitable, isn't it, Dylan?
Yeah, well, you know, it's true. There's a little bit of tradition there, but in reality, it's when you're surfing across the pavement at 30 miles an hour, you don't want chunks of skin tearing out of your legs. But, you know, look what's just showing up, gentlemen.
It's raining.
That's right.
134 laps down, and it is a pretty steady, although light rain at this time. We've been watching a big band of light green followed by a band of dark green on the radar, and you know what that means. It's going to start light, but then it's going to get heavy, and it's tracking straight at Bloomington.
And Jack and Dylan, what Eddie's interview down there with Corey Lewis, that was kind of revealing, because Corey said he didn't want it to come down to a sprint at the end. He wanted there only be a couple teams on the lead lap at the end. This is really where strategy and coaching comes into play, because there's a couple teams, Fiji included, Cutters included, they don't want it to come down to a sprint. They want to win with a little gap at the end.
They go green again, and Arneson is out on the front. Remember, Arneson's the guy with that big engine. Twice before in this race, we've seen him really put it out there.
And from what I understand, he's also a sprinter for Alpha Tau Omega. Look for him to be right up there and contend at the end. David Jordan for ACR Cycling, Simeon Commission for the Team Major Taylor boys. Those are the sprinters that are going to try to light it up on that last lap.
I don't know if the Dodds House rider got caught looking down when it went green, but he lost about 20 or 25 yards at the surge there.
Jack, actually what happened was that the Dodds rider was off the back before yellow. And so this is an opportunity for him to catch back up, and I think he's actually going to do it. So this is a situation where the yellow flag actually made him catch back up, because the pack is so big, he's going to be able to close that gap.
Is weather turning into a factor? Eddie Van Gijs is out in it. Eddie, can you hear us? Go ahead.
Yeah, I can hear you, Jack. And the rain is coming down harder. And you know what? The strong teams with 136 books.
Wreck in turn 4. 2 riders down, neither among the leaders, but the medics are right out immediately to try to help the down rider. I believe that's from Forrest. And again, it's under yellow. Let's go back to Eddie Van Gijs for more about the weather. Eddie?
Boy, you talk about non-stop action, Jack. This is it, this little 500. But weather right now, here's the attitude of the teams. You've got the Cutter team that they are wanting an entire race, 200 laps, because that would give them over 60 laps to really use their endurance advantage and put the pressure on the team as they try to break away from the field. There's one team right now praying for an early white flag, and that would be Team Major Taylor. Watch Team Major Taylor. They're going to stay near the front. If the rain comes down hard, a white flag indicating one to go could come out anytime. So Team Major Taylor says, bring on the rain, and the Cutters are saying, no, let's get in the entire 200.
They're going to go another lap under yellow. Let's see what caused the yellow and the crash. Dylan?
Well, you know, I think this is another situation where the riders are getting tired and a little overlap of wheel. Next thing you know, 3 guys doing a little pavement surfing.
Dylan, we used to, at times, the best teams call that playing the music a little bit, and they're trying to get the teams on the back out of there. And to cause a wreck, you don't want to see people do it, but when they slow down in the corners and everyone bunches up like that, I think that's when the wrecks usually happen.
You're right. The slowest parts of the race are usually the most dangerous because it allows everybody that's in the back to kind of creep to the forward and to the front. Things start to get crowded at that point, and then little touch of the wheels, and you know, we see what happens.
Now, in the history of this race, as they go green once again, teams have been penalized for creeping up under the yellow, but the Dodds House rider, who was right at the back of that lead pack, has gotten himself into position on yellow where he can try to stay with them. But there's a surge at the front in blue. Alpha Tau Omega on the lead. Cutters in white in second. Fiji in orange in third. In the All Blacks, it's ACR in fourth, Briscoe and Burgundy in fifth. Acacia, which had the bike trouble earlier, is in sixth. Team Major Taylor in green is seventh. And they come across the start-finish line. They have completed 130 laps. This is number 140. Burgess cramping in the pits for Major Taylor. A danger sign here.
Well, you know, we're at that point in the race where the distance is really starting to take effect.
Yeah, get him some bananas and water.
Fiji about to hand the bike to Steve Spencer. Here comes the exchange. Great surge off the front. The pack's about 40 yards back.
Oh,
Joseph
beautiful.
Keck hands off. Spencer is on, and he's still got a gap, and he's got it up to speed. That's pretty close to perfect.
It's impressive how the Phi Gams do it. They seem to be riding a great race. They always get that gap. They always give it to the next guy off the front. That's an example of a great exchange in the little 500. I think it goes all the way back to coaching and teaching from the older riders. They're helped out by Todd Cornelius and Corey and Troy Lewis. They do a great job with these guys.
Alpha Tau Omega in blue, putting on the surge, trying to close the gap on the Fiji rider. It's down to 10 yards. Through the corner, it's down to 8, and the cadence went down. Slower riders being flagged to the outside.
And one of the real stories happening right now, Jack, is Dodds House is in the middle of the pack. That's Craig Lukens on the bike for them. He had to chase to catch up, so you know he's getting tired. He's done a lot of work today. We've been talking about him. Not going to be very effective in the sprint as a result of that, but you never know. As long as you can stick around in the little 500, you have a chance to win.
About 15 miles to go in this race. What do sprinters have that those guys who don't have sprint talent don't have, Dylan?
Well, you know, the sprinters have an unbelievable ability to have explosive power, and that's exactly what they're thinking about right now as we enter the last part of the race.
Cutters getting ready for an exchange, and the Cutters rider in white taking the lead. Fiji's trying to stay right on his wheel, so this could be really punishing. And when do you have to make the decision if you're going to go an extra lap? Because clearly the Cutters rider started to give his all, but now he knows he's going to give up tons of space if he makes the exchange now.
Yeah, he hasn't ridden a real good set, and you see Chris Fargo, he's going to have a little bit of work to do. He's standing in the pit waiting to get the bike. If you're the Cutters coach, you might ask him to go another lap. He's really gassed. This is getting interesting. He's trying to get outside. Can the Cutters rider do it? He's having a tough go of it.
Sigma Chi making an exchange. Briscoe making an exchange. Cutters make an exchange. Fiji in orange is on the lead. Now ATO, Alpha Tau Omega, goes to the lead. Major Taylor in green is still right there.
And everybody talked about the Cutters team before this race. I'm really impressed with Alpha Tau Omega, the team in blue. They have 2 great riders in Mearsman and Arneson. Look for them to do a lot of damage today. Phi Gamma Delta has also ridden a great race. And Team Major Taylor, they're sitting in a little bit, waiting for the sprint.
Alpha Tau Omega coming in for an exchange. Fiji will be on the lead with Major Taylor second. Acacia in purple in third. On the bike now, Jeremy Hess for Alpha Tau Omega, and he's at the back of that pack that trails the leaders. Fiji is in front wearing orange. with Major Taylor in green second. Acacia is in third. The Sigma new rider in all gray is down a lap.
And you can see the battle scars from what he's done today. Sigma new rider's got a little marks on the left arm, doesn't he?
Badges of honor, I'm sure.
Yeah, until you get in the shower later, right, Dylan?
That's right.
Ouch, babe. Get that Physo-Hex out and grit your teeth. Fiji in orange on the lead. Team Major Taylor in green in second. Acacia in all purple, despite the earlier mishap with the slipping hub of the rear wheel in third. Cutters in all white in fourth. ACR in all black with the surge to the front. Looks as if it could be a rider exchange here. ACR's Eric Durheimer, who rode a very strong shift earlier in this race, is getting out and getting ready, but the pack is moving very fast. This could be a crucial exchange for ACR in all black. The gap's only 30 yards. They're even. He's down 10. He's down 20. He's down 30, but he stays with the pack so he can draft a little.
Yeah, that was a good exchange. He puts him right in back at the back so he can get on, recover a little bit, and then move back up to the front.
An interesting variable in Little 5, guys. Every exchange you do is a little bit dangerous. A chain could come off, somebody could go down, so the more exchanges you have to do, the more chance that something bad might happen to your team.
Team Major Taylor with a huge surge here. But again, the pace is picking up as we get into the later laps. Now only about 50 to go. Team Major Taylor coming in for a rider and bike exchange. It's Julio German going on. And a similar exchange to the one we just described, where the rider was in front of the pack and the rider taking the bike is at the back. Eddie's downstairs in the Alpha Tau Omega pit.
Yeah, the blue team has had an outstanding day. Coach Norm Hughes, your thoughts on this race?
Oh, we're trying to stay ahead. This is an awesome race. We're going to race before it rains.
Yeah, would you like it to come down to a sprint? How do you feel about your speed at the end?
Absolutely, we're going to win it.
There you have it, another confident coach. Hey, only one team can win it, Jack, but you know what? A lot of confidence down here in the pits.
Eddie, thank you. How intense does the concentration have to be here, Dylan?
Yeah, these guys have really got to start to focus, you know, and I think an interesting thing is that we've just heard from a couple of coaches that want to hear it come down to a sprint. And that's not good for the cutters because they don't want it to come down to a sprint. And what that means is that they're not going to find anybody out there to really help them get away. So they're basically up against the whole field at this point.
And you see Team Major Taylor is one of those teams that just kind of wants to keep it together. The Cutters, if I'm the Cutters coach or I'm the Acacia coach, you got to be looking to push the pace a little bit and maybe get rid of that Team Major Taylor rider. I'm not sure who he is, but he's up. Can you help me out on that, Jack? I think he's a 3-4 guy. Yeah. And that's the interesting thing about it. The Cutters, they have their top guy, Chris Vargo. Acacia has their top guy, Brady Gibney. They might want to look to push the pace a little bit right now. They're going to follow Phi Gamma out on this exchange. No, a little bluffing.
Sigma Chi has its rider really pumping it. They're on a lead of about 60 meters as they come off turn 4. He goes all the way into the gutter, clearly gassed. He's caught on the inside. He's after coming. Go around again. Cutters with a surge here. They sense the kill.
And this is exactly what Corey Lewis and the Phi Gamma pit wanted. They wanted a wreck and for them to get around it. They got around it. Acacia got around. Cutters got around. Sigma Chi is safe. Team Major Taylor safe. ACR. The two teams that went down are Briscoe and Alpha Tau Omega, two of our leaders.
This one really hurts two contending teams, and obviously some big physical pain as well as the Briscoe rider eats it, and then Alpha Tau Omega goes endo right over the bars.
That's where the coaster brake comes into play right there, Dylan. He couldn't slow down. You saw the Cutters rider up front slow down. The Briscoe rider couldn't.
Yeah, we're going to see here a definite invitation to the House of Pain. There's no question about it. This guy's going to feel that one.
Under yellow right now as they pick their way through traffic. Alpha Tau Omega and Briscoe both suffering, literally and figuratively.
Certainly our prayers go out there to Jeremy Hess, the rider for Alpha Tau Omega. He was doing nothing wrong. He was riding up front. There was an error on the rider in front of him that caused him to go down. We'll see. Alpha Tau Omega is about a quarter lap down right now. The team in blue, they were riding with the leaders. We'll see if they can catch up.
So, Jason, I don't know if we can get this on the replay, but I saw that immediately after the crash, the ATO rider that went down, his teammate ran over, grabbed the bike, and got right back in. So is he back in the field now? Is he back on the lead lap with the leaders still?
On the lead lap, about a quarter of a lap down, Dylan. It really helped them that the wreck happened right in front of their pit. It allowed them to respond very quickly to it, get a fresh guy out there so he could go and pick up the bike.
One more time.
Yeah,
Look at this reaction time.
Runs over, gets the bike, jumps right back in.
And Hess, with just surges of adrenaline coursing through his veins, actually stood up. The medics,
they had a problem with the bike. You see that? That's it. We go back to the only having 2 bikes. He had to bring that one in, get a fresh bike to the new guy on the bike for Alpha Tau Omega.
The medics put the backboard up against Hess, who was standing, and then laid him down on it. And now they're going to cart him away to the infield medical unit. Still under yellow here. And now in the 154th lap of this race, the Little 500 of 2004. And there is Hess. And he seems to be rather stable. And they're going to go green once again. Cutter's on the lead. Team Major Taylor in green, second behind the white-clad Cutters rider. Acacia in purple in third. ACR in black in fourth.
You're going to see a blistering pace set by Cutters right here. They want to get rid of that Alpha Tau Omega rider who had gone down. They're going to set a blistering pace and try to lap ATO, which was with the leaders.
You're right. There's so much traffic in between the ATO rider and the Cutters right now, and it's coming to pieces, and I really don't think he's going to be able to catch back on.
All right, Acacia with a surge to the front.
That's Brady Gibney, certainly their leader. We got him back on the bike.
Cutters in second in white, ACR in black in third.
And that's
There's the ATO rider giving his all. He's still down about 100 yards. He's going to have to do something really special to get back in it. Acacia in purple in front. Sigma Chi in gray and white in second. Cutters in white in third. ACR in black in fourth. Team Major Taylor in green in fifth. The rider on the sixth wheel is in all gray from Sigma Nu. He is down a lap. So Sigma Chi has the lead as they complete lap 155.
That was a great exchange by Acacia. I think, what do we call that, Jason? The ghost ride?
Yeah, we call it the ghost exchange because nobody's touching the bike at a certain time. You just kind of have to let it go and you get off the back.
One more look as the guys in purple stay in it.
That's a little style with the exchange, isn't it, Dylan?
Yeah, that's great. I like that. You know, I think what we just saw happen, the crash, the ATO rider went down. He wasn't actually the guy that caused the crash, but he was a little bit too far back from the front. And so now the field is kind of made up of riders that are on the lead lap and riders that have been lapped. So you got a lot of riffraff in there, and that's just one of those situations where you've got to be at the front.
Team Major Taylor going to an exchange. And I think it's Stephen Ballinger who is now up in the saddle. Sigma Chi in gray and white is on the lead. Now Fiji goes past on the inside. Fiji in orange. Cutters in white in second place. Sigma Chi in gray and white in third. And Briscoe in burgundy making a big move up the outside to try to get back in this. Remember, it was a Briscoe rider who went down in front of the Alpha Tau Omega rider, causing that huge pileup, and we thought two teams were out of it, and both of them were fighting right back in because the Alpha Tau Omega rider, coming up to his exchange lap, has gotten within about 40 yards of the leaders once again.
That was a great effort.
You know, that's the kind of stuff that they're going to remember 25 years from now when they come back and they all get back together. Remember that horrible crash and how those other guys got us back in the race and gave us a chance at the end.
You're exactly right, Jack. You got a whole fraternity on your back right there. You're trying to pull them back into the race.
Fiji in orange is in the lead. Cutters in white in second. Sigma Chi in gray and white third. Acacia in purple in fourth. Who's going to make an exchange here? How about nobody?
This is that time during the race where you're going to see the pack slow down a little bit. They're jostling for position. Their sprinters are probably getting close to being in the pit, flushing their legs out, getting ready to go at the end.
Are they bluffing here? Are they trying to feel each other out, sending false signals? What's going on in the pack?
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of these riders here, well, these guys that are out there riding right now know that they're not going to be on the bike for the finish. So it's their job to soften everybody up.
Big move from Cutters off the front. Chris Vargo flying forward about 50 yards ahead of the pack. I think that's Russell Vander Gnuken, who just got onto the bike. And he drops right in on the leaders.
Chris did an excellent job and delivered Russell right to the front of the pack. That's where you want to be. Chris certainly a leader for them, and he's done a great job of riding today.
Sigma Chi in gray and white on the lead. Cutters in white in second. Acacia in purple in third. Fiji in orange in fourth. ACR in black in fifth. Briscoe in burgundy, which seemed out of it only 5 laps ago after a horrible looking crash, is back in it. Listen to the crowd going wild. ACR rider charging to the front. Ryan Schultz is getting ready in the pits. He'll be the next rider for ACR Cycling. Fiji also putting on a surge, so there's going to be an exchange there. Fiji and ACR with a little bit of distance on the pack. Now the Fiji pit is sooner than the ACR pit, so they'll be able to exchange without any confusion in traffic. It looks pretty clean for both. They're both on. Ryan Schultz is the new rider for ACR, and they're right with the leaders.
Yeah, you see another example of 2 top teams, ACR and Fiji, queuing off of each other, following each other into the pit. Good exchanges for both of them. They're right back up there in the front. If they ride in this good a position the rest of the race, you're going to see them around at the end. You might see David Jordan, the big sprinter for ACR, on there.
Briscoe has surged to the lead, getting ready for an exchange. What a story this would be if they could come back from a wreck so close to the end and win the thing. A good 50 yards here for the Briscoe rider, and this ought to go down in Little 500 lore regardless of the result, as Timothy Smith gets Briscoe back in it in the rain at the Little 500, less than 10 miles to go.
You got to dig deep right here, Dylan. It just started to pour. You know, there's less than 40 laps to go. You got cinders flying up in your face. You got scars on your arms from times you've gotten on. You just got to dig deep and finish this race out.
Yeah, these riders are ready to do battle now. They're definitely ready to enter the final part of this race.
So we have our leaders together. We have Phi Gamma Delta in orange. We have Acacia in purple. We have Briscoe, the residence hall up there in burgundy. The Cutters, the legendary independent team in white. Team Major Taylor in green. Dodds House, another legendary residence hall in blue and yellow. That's Craig Lukens on the bike for them. He's got his team back in the race.
Just fantastic character on display here as we see one of America's true great college sports events. Back in the day, college sports were all about doing something for your school and having fun. It wasn't about being in the minor leagues and getting ready for the pros. This is a perfect example of that spirit still alive as the rain increases. It begins to pour on the cinder track, which has clay underneath. Are you going to race a lap at a time here, or do you assume it goes all the way, Dylan?
I think we're going to go all the way to the finish. You know, it's really important to understand that when it starts to rain, the rider in front of you is kicking up all this dirt and water in your face. So sometimes it's actually better to be in the front, even if you have to spend more energy to be there.
Alpha Tau Omega has gone back to the front. Dodds House is looking for an exchange here after being almost spat out the back. Let's see if Alpha Tau Omega can make a clean exchange. This is the team that had the rider go butt over tea kettle and land right on the cement. Let's see if they can stay on the lead. It is Chris Bentz getting on the bike, and he's going to have to hang on to the back of the pack. He's going to have some work to do on a muddy track. Acacia in purple is on the lead. Let's get the thoughts of Eddie Van Geis.
Gentlemen, it's coming down very hard right now, and if I was a coach, I think the strategy would be, I better get my fastest sprinter on the bike immediately. I know it's a gamble, but at any time the white flag could come out, indicating 1 lap to go. So I would go to my sprinter right now and say, make sure you ride in the top 3 or 4 position.
As Acacia in purple makes the exchange, Jason, are they going to do that, or will they let this thing go even if it turns to a quagmire?
It certainly makes it exciting, Jack. Kind of like Preems in a criterium. You want to get the fastest guys up front in hopes that they might wave that white flag. It's up in the air. I think they're going to go to the end. They very rarely call a race short.
Here are the top sprinters if it comes down to it. Team Major Taylor is in the lead group wearing the all green. ACR is in the lead group and in fact actually on the lead in the all black right now.
And we got those results from missing out. Missing out, again, one of the series events that happens before the race in which we can identify the top sprinters because they're racing lap after lap.
Dylan, that low groove is obviously wet. You can see, especially in high definition here on HDNet, how shiny it is. Is that a factor for these racers, or are they staying clear of that low groove?
Yeah, it really does look like they're kind of riding about 2 or 3 feet to the right of the gutter, and that would indicate that it's a little bit slippery down there, and I guess that's where all the water collects, because there is a little bit of banking here.
Amazingly, impossibly, Alpha Tau Omega is in the lead of this race with 32 laps to go. Both Briscoe and Alpha Tau Omega had heroic laps ridden by the riders who jumped into the breach when they saw their teammates go down, and I do mean go down.
Yeah, absolutely, Jack. I think that was a great display of experience. You know, when they saw the rider crash, they jumped right in.
It's getting wiggly under those rear tires, especially as they churn through the curves. Fiji in orange on the lead, putting on some pace here. Acacia in purple in second place. Alpha Tau Omega in blue in third. Cutters in white in fourth. Team Major Taylor in green in fifth. Briscoe in burgundy in sixth. The mud is kicking up. These guys are looking like Triple Crown jockeys.
And you're going to see a couple exchanges. These are two teams we need to watch. Acacia's rider throws his shades off. He's going one more lap as the Fiji's come in for an exchange. That's a good one. We'll see if this Acacia rider can build more of an advantage on this next lap.
But the Fiji rider is really giving up ground here as he gets the bike up to speed. Is it harder to get traction when you're getting a single gear bike up to speed on a slippery track?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's really crucial that you get up to speed quickly. Otherwise, you're going to spend a lot more time trying to close that gap down. So these riders want to get onto the back of the field immediately.
Acacia getting ready for an exchange, or will he go another? Nope, they're going to get ready for the switch here. Coming up to the end of the 170th lap, and it looks pretty clean as Acacia's Andrew Svengros, who has ridden a lot, gets on. Alpha Tau Omega with a clean exchange as well. Cutters in white is on the lead. Dodds House in yellow and blue is second. Team Major Taylor in green is third, and now Team Major Taylor puts on a surge. Looks as if Team Major Taylor might be getting ready to switch. And Alpha Chi in gray and white gets a new rider ready as well.
And I think this is Simeon Commissione on the bike from Team Major Taylor. This might be his last set before he sprints at the end of this race. I think they're thinking, get him off the bike, get him in the pit. He's going to rest his legs a little bit before the sprint comes around.
How smart has Team Major Taylor been in this race, Dylan? It seems they haven't had to carry the pace for much of the race.
Yeah, you know, they've been really smart, and they've been identified as one of the favorites, so everybody's watching them, yet they haven't had to take on the responsibility of the race, and that's because they're sprinters. They want to sit on the wheel. They want to make all the other teams, especially cutters who don't have a real sprinter, do all the work, and they're doing a great job of it.
And that's exactly what happened as you were talking about it, because the Team Major Taylor rider in green is happy to sit back in sixth, just within shouting distance. The Cutters rider on the front in all white knows he needs a little bit of a gap. These guys are absolutely covered in mud and cinders. Cutters making an exchange, Briscoe making an exchange. They're both pretty clean. Fiji in orange has the lead. Alpha Tau Omega in blue in second. Acacia in purple is third. And Team Major Taylor just hanging right in there in fourth.
That's Alpha Tau Omega right now in the front. You got to give a lot of credit to them. They're a fraternity that's been in this race for a long time. They're the fraternity of Howard Howdy Wilcox, who started this race way back in 1951. So certainly a little bit of sentimental favorites.
The Acacia rider, Andrew Svengros, putting on a surge here, and Acacia's getting ready for another exchange. I believe it's going to be Brady Gibney getting out there again, or is this going to be Robert Allen? It is Gibney who's getting the bike ready. Now he started, no, he didn't start the race. Allen actually started the race for him, but Gibney's one of their big guys.
Yeah, the word on the street was that Gibney has incredible physical attributes. Kirk Ensheimer was telling me that they did a VO2 max test on him earlier, and he seems to be one of the better riders out here. Look for him to maybe do a long set and take advantage of that endurance that he has.
They make a clean exchange. Acacia in purple, dropping into the back of the lead pack. Cutters in white on the lead. Alpha Tau Omega in blue, and Team Major Taylor in green. In a nutshell, Dylan, tell us what a VO2 max test is.
Well, a VO2 max test basically represents a measurement of how much oxygen your body can process. And what that determines is how much wattage or how much energy you can do, how much watts you can put out essentially. So it's a good representation of how powerful of an engine you have.
Sounds like it hurts. Cutters in white on the lead. Team Major Taylor in green in second place. Alpha Tau Omega in blue in third. Fiji in orange in fourth. ACR. We haven't heard much from them in the last few laps, but they're right there in the lead pack. Briscoe in burgundy is also there. ACR, of course, is in the all black. Tactical pace here.
Yeah, I think, it's like 24 laps to go. Everybody's settling in. They're kind of checking each other out. You want to see what's going to happen in the next couple laps. It's really going to determine who's going to be on the bike for the final.
So, Jason, the Cutters team in white leading the race, not with a reputation as great sprinters. When does it have to happen for them? They've got to get a gap, right?
Well, in 1996, you saw the Phi Deltas go with about 6 laps to go, so it can happen at any time. If Cutters does choose to go, you're going to see them do short sets, and they're going to probably put their best 2 guys out there, Vargo and Fowler, and try to make up some ground on everybody else.
Sigma Chi with a little bit of speed, but Alpha Tau Omega goes with the Sigma Chi rider. Sigma Chi in the gray and white, and you can see from his effort, picking the head up, starting to lose a little bit of form. That's a sign that he's starting to hit the wall in terms of oxygen debt. His cadence is going down. The pack's right with him. This could be a very punishing exchange. Let's see if this is the difference for Sigma Chi in gray and white. He's got it going, but he's going to really have to make up a lot of ground. Fiji has surged to the front, and that's paying the price right there.
And Sigma Chi, this is their first year really up there with the leaders in a while. You can see a little bit of inexperience here come into play as the pace picks up, and that Sigma Chi rider's going to have to chase and catch back up with the leaders.
Steve Spencer of Fiji getting ready for an exchange, and Briscoe and Alpha Tau Omega, the 2 teams involved in the crash, are 1 and 2 right now. Briscoe goes for an exchange. The Alpha Tau Omega rider stays on. Briscoe's exchange is clean. Briscoe's got Matt Kimball on the bike right now, but up at the front in purple, it's Acacia on top. Alpha Tau Omega in blue in second. Cutters in white in third. Team Major Taylor in green, with the great sprinter Commission getting his full engine back, resting right now, is in fourth.
We can see the Major Taylor rider just glued to the wheel of the Cutters rider. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the coach of Major Taylor said, I want you to just sit on that wheel.
The Acacia rider, Brady Gibney, with a big surge here after holding up the index finger. 20 laps to go. Gibney signaled that he had 1 left in him, and he's going to try to stretch it out here.
And they're probably going to try to get him off the bike, get him rested up for the finish. It looks to me like it's going to come down to a sprint. If your team Major Taylor, you got to be very happy with that right now, with one of the strongest sprinters out there.
Ryan Brown may be the penultimate rider for Acacia, as Gibney will take 1 more. It was a bluff. So Gibney's off the front, and I think they let him go. He's got about 60 yards. He's looking behind him, and he knows he's got a gap. Doesn't seem to be losing his cadence, but he's got 300 meters left.
And he has another rider with him, so those 2 guys can work together. And if you look back to the pack, the Cutters and Major Taylor are kind of stuck in traffic while this Acacia rider is sneaking off the front. That was a great move. I love the bluff.
So in comes Gibney. He's going to go again. Oh, he kind of slowed his cadence, and now he puts the hammer down. Alpha Tau Omega keeps getting a ride out of Hans Arneson. Fiji has caught Alpha Tau Omega, but still Gibney in purple is off the front for Acacia. This is a serious move. This is no bluff. It's now.
This is a great opportunity for the Cutters because they're not doing any work. If you see the Fiji rider, the ATO rider, the Sigma Chi rider, they're on the front right now. They're going to catch the Acacia rider, and when they catch, the Cutters rider needs to throw the hammer down. That's his only opportunity right now before the finish line.
Gibney's got nothing left. It's the ghost exchange. It wasn't clean. The bike wiggled a little bit. Ryan Brown is up, but Fiji's back in the lead, so the gamble did not pay off. Acacia couldn't hold the lead. It's Fiji in orange, Briscoe in burgundy, but there goes the Acacia rider with fresh legs.
Those fresh legs make all the difference. As you see cinders all over the guys' faces, all over their jerseys. They're just sucking it up. They're trying to get to the end of this race. There's only about 15, 16 laps to go. Motoring along. Acacia has a little advantage. What they're doing right now is they're putting a little hurt on the other teams. The teams are strung off the back.
Well, either way, we're going to remember the gamble move with about 20 laps to go by Brady Gibney. Acacia in purple in front. Alpha Tau Omega in blue in second. Fiji in orange in third. Major Taylor, a little bit of a gap there, and that Major Taylor rider is going to have to do some work as he is facing some wind resistance. Now the Fiji rider puts on his surge as he gets ready for the exchange, and the Acacia rider lets him go.
You see that Phi Gamma rider, he's coming in for an exchange. Fiji's been on the front all day long doing a great job.
Acacia makes a switch as well. It's Matt Davis for Fiji. Alpha Tau Omega makes a switch as well. They go, I believe, to Mearsman.
Okay, so if we look, the Cutters rider has a pretty big gap on Major Taylor right now, and the Fiji rider is bridging up to the Cutters, so this is an opportunity for those two guys to get rid of Major Taylor. It's like do or die right now. These guys have got to turn the screws.
Eddie's with Cutters. It's now or never, and Fiji's making a move with bringing Briscoe with him. Eddie, what do you got?
Well, Jack, we are in the Cutter pit right now. Jimmy Kirkham, your thoughts? Who's getting on the bike? Well, he's going to talk to us in a moment. All right. They faked out. He's happy. Jimmy Kirkham, what was that about? A bluff? That's Jason Fowler ready to go out, huh?
We're trying to get a fast tempo in the race. First up, the best position to win.
Let me ask you this. Your breakaway attempts today, everybody keyed on you. You weren't able to break away. Jason Fowler's very fast. They're saying Commission and him, it could be quite a sprint. Will Jason be on the bike at the end for you?
It's possible. It's either him or Bargo. It's possible.
All right, good luck to you, Jimmy. Good luck to the Cutters. There you have it, guys. The two fastest guys, Commission riding for Team 1, the pole team, Major Taylor, and then Jason Fowler. Let's not forget in qualifications, he had the fastest lap in quals. It's going to be one heck of a finish, guys.
All right, again, another exchange by Acacia as they're riding the short shifts. I believe it's Robert Allen who's up in the saddle right now on the lead. Cutters in white. In second place in orange is Fiji. In third place in blue is Alpha Tau Omega. And Team Major Taylor in green is right there again, but here comes the Acacia rider in purple up the inside to move into fourth place.
You got to hand it to the Major Taylor rider. He did a great job of closing that gap. That was a dangerous moment.
Yeah, he had the Briscoe rider back there to work with each other a little bit, and that's how they bridged back up. You have to be impressed with the way Acacia's riding today. They've been riding aggressive, attacking all day long. They're sitting in good position right now.
Sigma Chi has gotten spat out the back. They're going to make an exchange, but I think it's going to be too little too late for Sigma Chi, which was in it until there were about 20 laps to go. Alpha Tau Omega, at least for the moment, is in the lead. This is one of the two teams who was in that terrible crash coming out of turn 4 along with Briscoe. Briscoe as well is in the lead pack. The rider in yellow and black on the inside is not on the lead lap. Those are the leaders in blue. Alpha Tau Omega in blue and Cutters in white. Acacia in purple coming around, and they're getting another Acacia rider ready, so this will be 410 meters to go of burnout for the Acacia rider, Robert Allen.
Yeah, he's just trying to dig deep right now, Jack. He knows there's only 11 laps left. They're really pushing the pace, trying to put the hurt on the other teams. They're a little bit back in the pack. Acacia's riding very aggressively. You got to like their chances at the end.
Dylan Gibney is ready for Acacia to take the exchange. Can he go 2.5 miles and still have anything left for the final 100 meters?
Yeah, I think, these guys are definitely prepared for that, and I think this is part of their strategy. And we've seen them doing a bunch of exchanges, so I think they're going to see this all the way down to the last lap.
All right, Gibney's on the bike. Cutters also makes an exchange. So the leaders, with 10 laps to go, Alpha Tau Omega in blue, Team Major Taylor in green, Cutters in white, Fiji in orange, Briscoe in burgundy, and Acacia in purple coming up at the back of that pack. Now the Team Major Taylor rider is making a break. Is it going to be Commission at this point? Now the Team Major Taylor rider drops back into the inside. Cutters is going to have a go of it here.
Great move by Jason Fowler. That's how experience coming into play. He won the race last year. He followed a wheel out. Now he's got a little gap with only 9 laps to go. This could be a good time.
Don't forget, we saw Commission earlier in this little 500. make up about 100 meters in the course of one race. But here's a little bit of a gap. Fiji's trying to bridge it right now. In white, Cutter's on the lead. Fiji in orange. Alpha Tau Omega in blue. Acacia in purple. I think they're bringing him back. 3 against 1 usually wins.
And the Cutters rider's on the rivet right now. We think that's Jason Fowler. We need to get a check on that, but he's on the rivet trying to get a gap with only 8 laps to go. It's an opportune time.
That was a great move by the Cutters rider, and the Major Taylor rider again is off the back, and he has a huge gap to close, and even if he closes it, he's going to be in an awful lot of pain on the last lap.
8 laps to go, and Cutters has a lead of about 50 yards on Acacia. Cutters in white, Acacia in purple, Alpha Tau Omega in blue.
Oh, I see Fowler down there in the pit. I was wrong. This might be either David Coughlin or Russell Vandergooten on the bike for Cutters right now, doing a big set as his coach Jim Kirkham's out there yelling at him to keep going. This is beautiful, Dylan. This is stuff that legends are made of, right? With cinders all over your face, the dirt, the grime, trying to dig it out and win this bike race.
This is a great move by Cutters. I'm really excited to sit. Those guys came out today and said, you know what, we're going to make this race hard. And they're doing exactly that.
It's a 20-yard gap for the Cutters rider in white as they pick their way through slower-moving traffic. The Dodds House rider in yellow and blue is down a lap. Not on the lead lap. So here comes Cutters in white, Acacia in purple, Alpha Tau Omega in blue, Fiji in orange, also on the lead lap. Here comes the exchange, and Fowler is on.
Fowler's getting on, and he's the sprinter. He's the guy that Eddie was down there talking to Jim Kirkham about, the person that put the strongest lap together in qualifications. He's going to finish the race off, and notice that his white jersey is not scarred by the cinders. He hasn't been on the bike for a while.
That's right. That's right. He jumped right on the wheel of the Major Taylor rider, and those guys are going to have to take him back up to the front.
He's on the wheel of Stephen Commission, who has not worked that hard to work his way back to within about 30 yards of the leaders. We have seen Commission put the hammer down. Now Fowler goes around Commission. Fowler in white, and Commission's right on his wheel, going out, and a Briscoe rider stays right with him. So here we go. About 5 laps to go. Alpha Tau Omega in blue, putting on a surge. Acacia in purple in second. Fiji in orange in third. Cutters in white in fourth. Commission riding for Team Major Taylor in green in fifth. Briscoe and Burgundy in sixth. They are tightly packed. It is going to be a phenomenal finish at the Little 500.
They say the biggest motivator you can have in a race is to finish second one year. You want to come back and get it this year. You got to know that that's what the Team Major Taylor rider's thinking right now.
Alpha Tau Omega making probably its final exchange. 4 laps to go here. It's only about a mile to go. 410-meter track, and this is going to go down in Little 500 legend. The Acacia rider putting on a surge. Can they get away with one more exchange? Fowler's cadence very slow as he rides in the wake of the leader. Suddenly the pace goes tactical again. This is not good news for Cutters, which didn't want to sprint. It's great news for Commission in green because he is right there, only about 5 yards off the lead, riding in dirty air.
Team number 5, Briscoe, just kind of hanging out there in the mix too. That's Tim Smith on the bike for them. They're leaders. What a great race. As you see, we got 6 teams duking it out for the finish.
I don't know what happened to ACR Cycling. We lost track of them, but they're gone. Dodds House dropped out. Team Major Taylor is in it. Cutters in it. Acacia is in it. Alpha Tau Omega is in it. Fiji is also there.
This is a
Cutters
big
with a big surge.
This is Fowler coming in. He's going to give it to Vargo. This is their last exchange. Let's see how it goes. Vargo's going to be fresh.
Acacia also making a move. Acacia with a clean exchange. It's Gibney on the bike. Cutters hands off. It's Vargo. He's going to go.
Great exchange. Puts him right on there in the back.
2 to go.
Oh, this is exciting. Phi Gamma Delta, Alpha Tau Omega both up there in the orange and the blue. Acacia's got to close a little bit of ground right now.
But with the cadence only at about 90 right now, you got to think Commission is licking his chops. This is the way that Team Major Taylor wanted it to unfold.
It's true, you know, I mean, the Cutters put their rider in there with 2 laps to go, but the Major Taylor rider's been sitting on the wheel. He has not stuck his nose out in the wind yet.
White flag is out. Alpha Tau Omega in blue on the lead. Cutters in white in second. Fiji in orange in third. Commission. They like to make their move on the backstretch. They hit. 3 men go down. Briscoe, Fiji, and Team Major Taylor. It's down to 2 men. Alpha Tau Omega in blue. Cutters in white. Who's got the better sprinter as it comes right down to the line? Alpha Tau Omega into turn 3. Coming into turn 4. Here comes the final surge from Cutters to the outside. They dig for the final line. Alpha Tau Omega wins the Little 500 after a crash with 20 to go.
Wow.
That's Alpha Tau Omega's third win. Incredible finish.
Look at the shoulder in the sling and the torn jersey. Badges of courage as Alpha Tau Omega writes a chapter in Little 500 history.
What an amazing finish, you know, and we can look back to the ATO rider who crashed and his teammate ran right up and got his bike and got back into the race, and that is definitely a moment that will have an outcome on the race today. Yeah, they're DQing him because he took the Cutters rider to the gutter.
So that means that the Cutters team has won it. The celebration quickly shifts down the home stretch, and Cutters has won it on a disqualification.
You're right, Jack. You know, we saw yesterday in the final sprint that the Kappa rider took the Teter rider a little bit offline, okay, and it wasn't enough to call the disqualification. But if we can look at a replay of the finish there,
this is interesting.
The ATO rider took the Cutters rider. We can watch this coming around the corner, and he takes him in almost all the way across the track and into the crowd, into the other riders.
And I think it's fair to say that was Tom Mearsman for ATO. It's fair to say that the Cutters rider Vargo could have made up a lot of ground if Mearsman wouldn't have taken him into the fence.
I agree.
So obviously the officials are put in a tough spot right there, but they're forced to go ahead and make the call. That's called a hook in cycling. You're not allowed to take somebody into the fence.
Hans Arneson was the rider for Alpha Tau Omega.
And the real story right here is that we had a sprint finish. Team Major Taylor got in a wreck on the last. Let's go down to Eddie and find out what happened.
We got Chris Vargo. Chris, congratulations. What a great ride you had. Tell us about that sprint. We saw him drift very, very far. Disqualification. Tell us about it.
He slowed up a lot. And I couldn't get around him. I knew I could get around him if he would have stayed there. I would have easily gotten around him. I know that for a fact. So, I mean, it was a good race. We knew we could win. We didn't think it'd come down to a sprint, but it did. So, very happy with that.
You know what? You guys made an exchange as late as I've ever seen in Little 500. You get on the bike with less than 2 laps to go. It was a nice exchange. That was key. And then you rode beautiful position.
That was the plan. It came down 2 laps. That was our second plan, and it worked. So.
Congratulations, Cutters. So there you have it, Jack. Here it is, a disqualification. As you guys mentioned yesterday, we saw a little bit of drifting out in the women's race, but this one here, he took them almost to the pit area. A very happy Cutter group as they win their 7th Little 500. Let's go back up to the booth.
Chris Vargo from Bloomington, Indiana. True to the Cutters legend. Here's the final lap. What wild doings we saw.
As we come into the final lap, I guarantee you that the Major Taylor rider was fighting with the Fiji rider for the Cutters wheel. And as they come out of the turn 1 and into turn 2, you see these guys fighting, bumping. Next thing you know, race is over for them.
And these Team Major Taylor guys, Dylan, they have a track background. They're used to that. Obviously, they're both trying to get on that fast wheel, the Cutters.
That's right. And then we see what we're down to a 2-horse race.
It's Arneson in blue for Alpha Tau Omega, Chris Vargo in white for Cutters. And Cutters didn't want a sprint, but Vargo thought he was going to win it. That, of course, was assuming that Commission from Team Major Taylor would have been in it.
Oh, you can see him leave his line right there. He goes straight towards the fence. He leaves. His line was the gutter, the inside track, and he left it.
The crash made the difference in this race as Commission was right where he wanted to be until.
And Dylan, as you know, it's physical at the end of a bike race. These guys are throwing elbows, they're fighting over wheels.
That's right. So 4 riders went down as a result of that.
The Acacia rider, the last to crash as he just couldn't avoid the debris flying about 30 miles an hour. And Commission, who brought such promise into the race, a 2nd place finish last year and was in good position, but the handlebars touched. That set the Fiji rider's front wheel to wiggling. And with the footing as bad as it was, he wasn't going to save that.
About 3/4 of a lap to go.
And he was still the first rider whose wheel touched the finish line. In addition to that, he was out in the race for over 40 laps. I think even more, right? Probably even more. I couldn't count them all. So anyway, I'd like to present on the behalf of TI Craft and its almost 4 million participants, Hans, the Most Valuable Rider Award, and a brand new Le Mans bicycle for him to do as he pleases with.
That's a pretty sweet reward for Hans Arneson, who fouled coming out of turn 4, making the Cutters the winners. And the Cutters team is just finishing a victory run around this 410-meter track.
And what a race, Jack. Could you have ever scripted what was going to happen at the end? 4 riders going down, 2 of them duking it out, and one guy throwing the hook.
You know, the Greek influence is so huge. There's so many fraternities involved in the men's race, so many sororities involved in the women's race, and Cutters end up winning the big prize at the end of the greatest weekend.
Hats off to the Cutters program. Jim Kirkham and Jay Paulsgrove, they do a wonderful job. Chris Katowski's always around. Their riders are David Coughlin riding in his first race. Jason Fowler picks up his second ring, riding in his 3rd race. Russell Vandergooten in his first race gets a ring. And Chris Vargo, an exceptional spring for him in his 2nd race, winning the Little 5. It's the Cutters' 7th championship here at the Little 500, the 54th running. Great job, guys.
They will save the cinders. They wash off their faces and tell tales for years and years to come.
There's Jimmy Kirkham down there, the redhead. What a program they have.
A little bit of bitterness being voiced from the Alpha Tau Omega supporters, but perhaps they had the worst angle. They were looking perpendicular to the path of the riders. The best angle really was the one we showed as we were looking straight down that final stretch, and you clearly could see Arneson change his line and force Vargo well to the outside of the preferred route.
It's really too bad that he put himself in a situation where the official had to decide the race, but then again, that's something where the official does need to step up and make the call.
It was a tremendous afternoon of racing here in Bloomington.
As Fowler holds it up, you see him pick up his 2nd championship here at the Little 500. He's certainly going to have a great career. 2 wins. He's going to be a good candidate for the Hall of Fame.
Cutters the champions after an amazing day. Surviving crashes, picking their way through traffic, staying out in front of a last lap disaster which finished the day for 4 teams and then winning on a foul. We will be back to talk to the champs. On the 25th anniversary of the Academy Award-winning film Breaking Away, the Cutters win it again, this time in dispute as ATO has issued a protest, Alpha Tau Omega protesting the final, but the Cutters are going to walk away champions. Eddie Van Geis is with a happy foursome.
Happy Cutters, they win number 7, the winningest independent team. And Jimmy Kirkham, you qualified 10th this year. We talked about 20 years ago, your first time in the race, you won from the 10th position, but it took a little extra doing today.
It was a tough race. A tribute to everyone out there. Everyone battled hard. Everyone marked us, and it was a really struggle on everybody's part. I'm really proud of these boys for coming together, laying it all on the track, fighting till the very end. And I'm so happy for the win.
Jimmy, yesterday in the women's race, we saw a little bit of drifting out in that one. Today it was more. Did you think you could get a disqualification from where you were standing?
You know, I accepted 2nd place. We worked our tail off all season to do our best. If they gave us 2nd, we got 2nd. I'm happy for the ruling. It apparently was impeding violation, so we accepted it. We're definitely happy for the win.
There you have it. What a big win again. History repeats itself 20 years later. The Cutters win their 7th. Let's go back to Jack and the gang up there.
Smooch. Thank you, Eddie. Let's go back to the last lap. It doesn't get much more dramatic than this as 6 riders have a shot.
Wow.
There it gets wiggly. The rider in orange from Fiji loses control, touches handlebars, and there they go. And the Acacia riders last to hit the wreckage. Now it's a 2-man race.
And at this point, you're trying to win it into turn 3, and Hans knows this. He's going for it. He's doing an excellent job of holding Chris Vargo off his wheel. Vargo's tucked in there. Right at this point, Vargo's thinking he's got to come around out of that 4th turn.
And he seems to have him.
He seems to have him right there. Hans makes a mistake and coming too far out.
And here's where it's conclusive. You see him change the line.
All the way from the pole line to the other side of the track, almost taking the Cutters rider into the infield of the other riders.
And it's almost into the pit. I feel like at that point the officials almost have to make the call. With that angle, running a guy into the pit, Cutters absolutely deserve this championship. It's a great race for them and picking up their 7th win.
The checkered flag went up, and then in quick succession, the red flag went up. Now the women's race yesterday that we brought to you live on HDNet had a similar finish, but the angle wasn't quite as great. Let's go back about 24 hours. Here's the women's finish. What's the difference that makes this not a foul?
Well, I think
that's 1 lap to go.
The difference is going to be, Jack, that she doesn't take him all the way into the pit. It's a distance away from the gutters, a distance away from that line that they started out on. So that's Jessica Sapp on the bike for Kappa Gamma. She's going to hold off Brie Kovac.
Yeah, you know, and Jessica, we're going to see this when we come out of turn 4, but they're both sprinting side by side. They're entering turn 3 here. They're going to come out pretty soon here, and I think what's going to happen is that Jessica's just going to look to her right a little bit,
but still hold the line.
Yeah,
there
she doesn't come all the way from the pole line to the pit area.
And you can't see the pits in the screenshot. No.
She started coming out wide, but I suppose you got to allow for the centrifugal force at that speed.
Absolutely.
On shaky footing, as a cinder track is not ideal for biking, that there's going to be a little bit of swing there, but then she did correct to straight as opposed to going diagonal, so you're telling me that's the difference?
I really think so. I think it's the amount of movement is really the difference there, and it just didn't look as intentional.
Yeah, it'd be great if we could see the guys finish now and just compare the angle that they did come in at. Because when the guys finished, you could see the pit lines. You could see how close they were to the fence. You can't do that.
The ATO rider, even before he exited the corner, was moving off the pole line.
Jason, is this unprecedented to have a race decided on a foul? You see the sportsmanship here. Is there agreeing at the end of the race here, or maybe having differing opinions, but at least talking to each other about it? Is this unprecedented?
I've watched a lot of race tapes. I've raced in 4 races and been around this event for a long time, and I haven't seen it before. It's really unfortunate for the Alpha Tau Omega team, who rode a great race, right? They rode a great race. They were up front at the end. They were where they needed to be. Nothing against them. Hans rode a great race. But this will definitely go down in history as something that doesn't happen every day. A foul being called to decide the little 500.
Amazing drama unfolding today. We saw 33 teams start this race. 10 were on the lead lap until about 25 laps to go. An incredibly violent 2-team crash with about 20 to go. Yet we saw both of those 2 teams among the last 6. Here it is with about 20 laps to go. Briscoe in Burgundy goes down, and then ATO right behind him. Yet those 2 teams in Burgundy, Briscoe and Alpha Tau Omega in blue, would have a chance to win it when there was a white flag. Briscoe, in an amazing twist, got involved in another crash before the checkered flag, and Alpha Tau Omega, for only a moment, thought it had won this race.
And the Cutters, year in, year out, seem to train harder than the other teams. They said there was only 5 days where they weren't outside on the roads training this winter, even with snow down and 20-degree weather. It's something that they deserve, that they've worked hard for. We saw 2 teams with a great effort at the end, both Alpha Tau Omega and the Cutters. The Cutters just coming out on top.
Yeah, Jason, has there ever been a crash like that on the last lap where like 4 of the riders in the lead lap get taken out?
I haven't seen one, Dylan. I think we need to go back to the archives. Yeah. Folks down at the Wilcox House do an excellent job in our student foundation. We might have to check in with them.
Now you see,
it makes for exciting TV, but at the same time, we're sitting here going how unfortunate it is, isn't it?
It's true. It's true. I mean, you know, that's bike racing. That's what makes it so exciting. And you got to hand it to the Major Taylor rider because he had orders. I'm sure their coach said, I want you on the Cutter's wheel. And he was fighting with it. And unfortunately, it went a little too far, and they both hit the deck.
Sometimes it's just not your fault, yet there isn't much consolation for those who come up short. Team Major Taylor, second place last year, in the top 5 this year, but they couldn't get what they really wanted most, the championship. It goes to Cutters. We will be right back to Bloomington, Indiana to wrap it up. The Cutters write another chapter in the legend. HDNet Sports returns to Bloomington, Indiana, and hip-hopping for fun. The Cutters are champions, winning after they were fouled in the final stretch. And alongside Jason Sonnenberg and Dylan Casey, I'm Jack Edwards. What an incredibly dramatic afternoon. You know, after watching the tapes from last year, I thought it couldn't get any better than that, but this might have been better than that.
It makes for great TV, Jack, and that's a moment that Chris Fargo and the Cutters and Hans Arneson are absolutely going to remember the rest of their life. I mean, the script was told. They both rode a great race. They were there at the end. It's a special day here in the Little 500 as the Cutters pick up another win.
Dylan, is this an example that we're beginning to see a leveling of the field? You know, it's not just the bikes and the track and all that, but the gene pool's getting deeper for this sport in this country.
You know, you're absolutely right, Jack. I'm really impressed at how tactical and technical these riders are becoming, and they're very serious. They're training, and you know, I think the crash happened there in the last corner because the Major Taylor rider had strict orders to be on the Cutter's wheel coming into the last corner. And unfortunately, it didn't work out because they were bumping elbows there, and you know, that's bike racing. But it's really exciting to see this type of bike racing on a collegiate level.
My adrenal glands are worn out. Let's get Eddie Van Geis's final thoughts.
Fellas, I think you hit the nail on the head. The balance in the Little 500 has never been better. It is such a huge event, and riders train all year for this big intramural event. Today's race had everything. We had sunshine and we had rain. The danger of the race may be ending early. That didn't happen. And of course, the usual strategic chess match. Everybody making moves. Which rider am I going to place at what time before the end of the race? And then an outstanding sprint finish. And I don't know if it's ever happened before in the history of Little 5, but a disqualification by one rider. And the Cutters, well, history again, they win their 7th. We had everything, guys. It was a pleasure. What a bike race today.
Eddie Van Geis, well said. Yeah, the best news perhaps that everybody walked away from this year's accidents in the men's race, and everybody who crashed in the women's race turned out to be all right. Yeah, we did see it all, but what we saw most of all was a lack of any sense of self-entitlement. These are athletes who are doing it for themselves, doing it for their housemates, doing it for their fraternity brothers and sorority sisters. The executive producer of HDNet Sports is Daryl Ewalt, who also produced this weekend's Little 500 races from Bloomington, Indiana. Oh, the crashes. Oh, we saw it all. Kent Sample has been our director. It has been a great pleasure working with Dylan Casey, Jason Sonnenberg, and with Eddie Van Geis down in the pits, and a sensational crew that put this thing together and is just getting set to tear it apart. These guys are getting set to tear it apart all night long. The riders of the Little 500. Cutters win it, adding to the legend. 7th time on top for them. This is Jack Edwards from Bloomington, Indiana. Thanks for joining us on HDNet Sports. We'll see you from here next year.